You just show up, you hear a couple speeches, and you circle Vivek's name. We vote on a paper ballot. No shenanigans like the Democrats, all right? We vote on a paper ballot, and they phone the results in. It's that easy. So 30 minutes of your lives, and we're going to shock the world. I've already seen a few precinct captains here. How many of you are precinct captains for Vivek? Raise your hands. All right, we got a bunch. All right, well, we want more. So we have staff going around with caucus cards. Fill it out so that we know you were here. And then check the box to be a precinct captain. What it means is we need you to read a letter for Vivek on caucus night at your precinct. So please do that. Now with that, I would like to introduce a special guest, a friend of mine who has a special announcement, and that's State Representative Jeff Shipley.
All right, let's give it up for Matt Schultz, everybody. No one in the state of Iowa has done more to secure our elections than Matt Schultz. And that's what's amazing about politics. You have to do a great thing one time, and you can be thankful for it the rest of your life. So we're very thankful for Iowa's elections, and we owe a lot of credit to Matt Schultz. And it speaks very highly of Vivek that someone like Matt Schultz will come and support Mr. Ramaswamy. So now, my name is Jeff Shipley. I've been a state representative for 6 years. I've been very involved in just about every single fight at the Capitol worth fighting for, from medical freedom to saving our kids from God knows what is happening in the public schools to everything else that we've had to deal with. And it's a fight, okay? And we're making some progress, but we're not always winning. We just had our awesome education law was struck down in federal courts, so now they can instruct kids with gender identity and transgender nonsense as young as kindergarten. We have serious problems in this nation. You guys know it, that's why you're here. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming. How do we even describe what's happening in our nation today? How do we even find the right words to articulate the problem, let alone the solution? So let me tell you, politics is a long ball game. And I don't mean to exaggerate, but the future of our nation, the future of the world, could hinge on the people in this room tonight. And we have a lot of amazing people. Some of them already have changed the world, the Moms for Liberty, and the other people who've been involved in these fights. So it's a long ball game. And no matter what happens on caucus night, these problems from the corrupt federal law enforcement to the transgender cult to the medical pharmaceutical mafia that wants to own you down to your genetic, they're still going to be around. And even if we elect the best president ever, it's still going to be a fight. So it's a long ball game. And we need to be very future-oriented. We need to think not just for next week, next year, next election, but about the next generation. What will our children learn about freedom? What will our children learn about basic concepts like biological sex or the existence of God or anything else, or money? One thing I love about Vivek Ramaswamy is he has done a good job calling to commodify our money. That we're not going to let these central bankers just pull dollar bills from thin air and make all of us poor overnight. It's a huge problem. It's affecting us every single time we go to the grocery store. Every single time I put gas in my car, I'm being robbed by the Federal Reserve because they just helped themselves with trillions of dollars because of this ridiculous COVID thing. And I don't want to blame anyone, but Donald Trump was president. And he hasn't really been apologetic or explaining some of the serious issues that we're still living with. Certainly people have gotten the vaccine, some of them are dealing with very serious issues, and they need real leadership to address that and explain truthfully what happened to law. I think we deserve that. I want to know how corrupt it is. I want to know who's on everyone's podcast. I think I can handle it. It might be terrifying, but I just want to know the truth. So, basically, it's a long ball game, and the decisions we make at caucus, and just let me talk about the caucus real quick. It's one of the most beautiful things for American republic, a true representative democracy, from the precinct level on up. We come together as a community, as a Republican Party, and we discuss what we want to see, how we want to exercise power in our local communities, as a state, and as a nation. And if you attend your caucus, you can become a delegate, and you can earn your way to the national convention, and you can be a part of stabilization. So the now I'm a state representative. So definitely caucus and get involved because you are the people that need to be exercising power in our communities, in our local government, in our school districts, in our state, and our nation. Protect that stuff, freedom of liberty, our basic health and happiness. That's what's at stake. So the caucus is important. Everyone needs to be involved, and we need to be thinking long term. We're going to set us up for the most success for the next generation and generations to come. And that's why I'm very excited to let you guys know today. I'm caucusing with Vivek Ramaswamy. It's been amazing, and I can share a million reasons why I believe this is the right decision. He's definitely earned my vote. Go down to top 10. He first came to the Capitol, he said we got to eliminate the Department of Education. I said, thank God someone's finally saying it, because if you would have rewind 8 years ago, that was still a taboo subject where Republicans, I don't want to be too radical and eliminate an entire department. First thing out of his mouth is what he said. And then from there, he's investing in Iowa for the long term. So we have had a lot of issues with gender identity. The Vivek 2024 campaign brought one of the best spokespersons, Chloe Cole, to the state to explain to people directly the harm that's involved in this thing. So he's taken a lot of action that shows that he's planting the seeds for long-term success. He's planting the seeds today, and we can plant that seed in fertile soil on caucus night, so 10, 20, 30 years from now, with God's grace, we might have a hope of having a nation where we can live in freedom, live in health, live in happiness. So thank you all for being here tonight, and I hope you join me caucusing for Vivek Ramaswamy next Monday night.
Yeah. USA. Good to see that.
I'm back. Thanks for coming back.
Good to be back. Good to be back. I love this.
Now, do I bring up Jake or you?
Yeah, I'm good to go. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jake Chapman's another great guy.
Bring him up here. Bring him up here.
So Iowa's done a lot of great things, and like I said, but again, it's a long fight. So the success that we've had today in school choice and all these other issues is because we've had people fighting hard for many, many years. And one of the reasons why I'm so happy to be a part of this campaign is so I can stand aside this gentleman right here, State Senator Jake, former State Senator, whatever. You still go by the title, right? Yeah, sure. I'm going to call this man Senator for the rest of his life, the one and only Jake Chapman.
Woo! Hey.
Thank you, guys. Give him a hand. Give
Yeah, seriously.
him a hand. Man, we're so happy to have you on board the Vivek Ramaswamy Railway.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
like
we
that.
gotta call it, man. Woo!
That's good.
Listen, guys, you're not here to listen to me. You're here to listen to Vivek. But I'm going to ask you one question. One question. How many of you have been polled?
Wow.
Are the cameras rolling? Are you taking note? Mainstream media. I got a poll today. Guess who wasn't in that poll? Vivek. Vivek Ramaswamy was not in the poll. Do not believe the mainstream media. It's garbage. There's one poll that matters, and that's January 15th, when we're going to shock the world. 30 minutes of your time. Folks, you heard Matt Schultz up here talking about it. 2012, Rick Santorum beats Mitt Romney by 34 votes. That was the difference between first and second place in the entire state of Iowa. Your vote matters. Your vote is important. So get out there, bring your friends, bring your neighbors, bring everyone along, and together, with everyone playing their role, I promise you, we are going to shock the establishment, we're going to shock the world, because Vivek Ramaswamy is going to come out on top. So please welcome my friend, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Thank you, man. Good seeing you, man.
Great turnout.
Good to see Jeff.
This is awesome. This is
USA. 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 Love it, brother. Another round of applause for a guy who's become one of my closest friends here. Jake Chapman, love this place. Thank you, guys. Well, they said expect a small turnout in the blizzard. I don't know. It seems like we got some excited fans here. I'm excited to see you all tonight. We're going to rip this open. We're at a phase of this where we got 8 days, 7 days, till you all have to, 6 days. We're counting it down till you all have to make a decision on January 15th. This is where we're going to shock the world. And I want to tell you why we're in this. My wife is actually coming from one of the other events in eastern Iowa today. She's going to drive here and be here in about half an hour. You're going to meet Apurva as well. We're doing this as a family. She's going to be a dominant first lady. And our 2 sons just got put in bed, but otherwise they would be here as well. We're doing this as a family. We're doing this for our kids. My parents came to this country 40 years ago with no money in search of opportunity. In a single generation, I've gone on to found multiple successful companies. Did it while marrying Apurva, raising our 2 boys, following our faith in God. That's the American dream. And I am worried that that American dream isn't going to exist for our sons and their generation unless we step up and actually do something about it. The reason I got into this race, I'm a businessman. I'm not a politician. If you asked me about a year and a half ago, were you going to run for U.S. president, I would have said that sounds worse than a sharp poke in the eye, okay? This is not out of pleasure. But we saw that red wave that never came. You all remember that? About a year, 4 months ago? That red wave that never came. Why? They blame Donald Trump. They blame abortion. No, there's something deeper going on. We as a Republican Party, we have grown lazy. We have lost our way. The other side, they're very good at feeding our vacuum with their vision of race, gender, sexuality, climate. And we're sitting here criticizing that other side's vision without offering an alternative vision of our own. What do we actually stand for as Republicans? What does it mean to be a Republican in the year 2024? What does it mean to be an American in the year 2024? We lack a good answer to that question. And to me, it means we believe in the ideals of 1776. Ideals like merit and the pursuit of excellence. That you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions. That's why I've said we will end affirmative action and racial group quota systems in every area of American life. It's been a cancer on our national soul, and we are done with it. And the woke indoctrination in our military and the DEI regime in government, because it's the right thing to do. It means we believe in the rule of law. And I say this as the kid of legal immigrants to this country. That means your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. And that is why I've said we will use our own military to secure our own southern border and our northern border too. That's what it means to stand for the rule of law in the United States of America. We're going to end birthright citizenship for the kids of illegals. We're going to make sure anybody who's entered this country illegally is returned to their country of origin. Stop funding federal funding for sanctuary cities. Stop funding Central America until they've fixed every part of their own border all the way from Venezuela to the southern border of Texas. This is how you seal the border, and it's going to take somebody with a spine to do it. It means that we, the people, create a government that is accountable to us, not the other way around. That the people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government, not the shadow government and the D.C. bureaucracy today. If there's one war that I'm going to wage, I promise you that I will wage as your next president. It's not some pointless foreign war abroad. It's not going to be in Ukraine. It's not going to be anywhere like that. It's going to be right here at home against our own shadow government right here in the United States of America. You want to drain the swamp, let's get serious about it. You want to gut that deep state, that's what I'm delivering for you. If there's one thing I get done as your next president, it will be that we actually, not talk about it, actually gut that deep state in Washington, D.C. You want to do it? Here's how we get the job done. I will fire 75% of the federal bureaucrats. This is how you drain the swamp. I will shut down government agencies that should not exist. FBI, ATF, CDC, U.S. Department of Education. We're going to get in there and shut it down. That's how you revive a constitutional republic. I'm not using last year's budget as the baseline, which is based on the prior year's budget before that, which is based on the year's budget before that. No. We're going to start with zero as the baseline and ask what's actually necessary. Zero-based budgeting. That's how we tackle our national debt. This is how you drain the swamp. If I can't work for you for more than 8 years, which is a good thing, neither should any of those federal bureaucrats reporting into me either. 8-year term limits for the bureaucrats instead of civil service protections. That's how you drain the swamp. Now, to do all of this, yes, we need, in the long run, elections that we can trust and believe in this country. You're not supposed to talk about this one. It's the one that we need to get done. Single-day voting on Election Day as a national holiday with paper ballots, government-issued ID to match the voter file, and English as the sole language that appears on a ballot. That's not too much to ask. That's not controversial. That's common sense. That's how we revive this country. These are not black ideas or white ideas. These aren't even Democrat ideas or Republican ideas. These are American ideals that we fought a revolution to secure in this country. And I believe deep in my heart that those ideals still exist. I am running for president to revive them. E pluribus unum. It means from many, one. That's what we've lost in this country. We've been taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways that we are the same as Americans, bound by that common set of ideals. That's what we've lost in this country. And here's how we're going to get it back. It's going to be by all of us, not just me. All of us. Starting to speak the truth in the open again. Say in public what you will say in private at the dinner table. Say it with a spine. Say it with conviction. Say it with respect. But part of respect is that you respect your neighbor enough to tell him what you actually think. And you see, that's what this campaign is about. Speaking the truth, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Speaking the truth, not just to the Democrats on the other side, but to our own side right here in this Republican Party here at home. There is a reason why I am the only candidate in this race who can even tell you certain things. That I'm against the carbon capture pipeline making its way across the other half of this state because it's unconstitutional in its use of eminent domain. To tell you that it's based on a climate change agenda, that I'll say it absolutely is a hoax because it has nothing to do with the climate. To tell you that Ronna McDaniel needs to step aside after 5 failed years of leadership of this Republican Party. We need accountability in our own party before we bring it to government. To tell you that I will pardon every peaceful protester from January 6th on my first day in office because it's the right thing to do for this country. To tell you that we are going to strip vaccine manufacturers of their special liability protections because there can be no injustice without actually correcting that. These are not controversial ideas because they're false. They're controversial to the mainstream media because they're true. I want you to open your eyes. These people are trying to rig the Iowa caucus. I don't say that lightly. The Iowa Standard put out a story today about how Jake's poll, that's different than one put out by the AP, put out by supposedly the mainstream media establishment. These people are lying to you. The same people who lied to us about the Russia collusion hoax that never was. The same people who lied to you about the COVID origin that didn't begin in a lab in China. You were censored if you said it did before it actually did. The people who lied to you about the Hunter Biden laptop story on the eve of the last election. The people who lied to you about the truth of what happened on January 6th, about how our money's being spent in Ukraine. They're now doing it all over again, and you watch what was coming in 2024. You thought what they gave the Trump treatment, you got to see what they're giving me already, but we're just getting warmed up because it does not belong to them. That decision doesn't belong to them. It belongs to you, the people of this country, to we the people. Our America First movement, it didn't start in 2016. It started in 1776. And it's up to us to pass this on for another 250 years left. And the way we're going to do it is to stand for truth. That is what this campaign is about. Speak that truth. Speak it without apology. God is real. There are two genders. Never thought I'd have to say that one. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family isn't a bad word. It is the greatest form of governance known to mankind. Capitalism lifts us up from poverty. There are 3 branches of government in the United States, not 4. And the U.S. Constitution, it is the strongest and greatest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is the truth. We fight for the truth. We stand up for the truth. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what reunited us after the Civil War. That is what won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. That is what still gives hope to the free world. And if we can revive that dream over group identity and victimhood and grievance, then nobody in the world, not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus, not China, is going to defeat us. That is what American exceptionalism is all about. And that is what we will revive to save this great country. Thank you all for coming out today, guys. God bless you and your families. And God bless our United States of America. We will not stop until we get this job done. We're going to the very end. We're going to win the Iowa caucus on January 15th, and it's going to be because you all do it. Somebody is very eager to ask questions. Always a great sign when that happens. I'm excited.
Sorry, thank you. My
Yes.
name is Layla, and when I was 15 years old, I lost my home and my high school in a climate disaster. 20 members of my family, all who immigrated from Pakistan, lost everything they owned. And I'm just wondering, how can you claim to stand for my generation while you call climate change a hoax? I'm just
So this is a question about climate change. And with your Layla?
Yes. How can you call it a hoax?
Yeah.
How can you claim to stand for me and my future while you call it that?
So thank you for asking the question. And one of our rules is you don't have to agree with what I say to ask a question. We have free speech and open debate in this country. And so I thank you for coming here to ask, in a respectful way, a question that you deserve an answer to. How do I say that the climate change, and what do I say? The climate change agenda is a hoax because it has nothing to do with the climate. So let's have a serious discussion about this.
Our oceans are the temperature
I'm going
of
to let you,
bathtubs.
you get to finish asking your question. I'm going to even give you the mic. You get to finish asking your question, but then I'm going to answer it after that. Is that a deal?
Okay.
Yeah, good. Go.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, how can you look your children in the eye while you basically deny that our future is literally on fire and our planet is burning?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to give you some hard facts about this. This is an issue I've spent a lot of time on, long before I ran for president. This is near and dear to me. I was probably the leading opponent in the private sector of the ESG movement, the environmental, social, and governance movement, which is basically based above all on one thing. The basis that climate change is an existential risk to humanity, and we need to stop burning fossil fuels. So let's take a minute on this one and go deeper than we usually would, because you asked it a question. 8 times as many people die of cold temperatures rather than warm ones. 8 times as many people died last year of cold temperatures rather than warm ones. The Earth is more covered with green surface area today than it was a century ago because carbon dioxide is plant food. The number of climate disaster-related deaths is down by 98% over the last century. The number of people who died of a heat wave, a tornado, a hurricane any other natural disaster, a drought or otherwise, is down by 98%. Remember our deal. We made a deal. I gave you the mic. I'm going to answer your question. Okay? So we had that deal. Fair enough? Because these are important facts. For every 100 people that died in 1920, 2 people die today of a climate-related disaster. So against that backdrop, do I think we need to abandon our modern way of life because of some infinitesimally small increase in global surface temperatures when more people are dying of cold temperatures than warm ones? No, I do not. When the climate disaster-related death rate has gone down by 98%, do I think we need to abandon our modern way of life? Abandon fossil fuels? No, I do not. Do I think it justifies a carbon dioxide capture pipeline using eminent domain to being built across this state to seize the land of innocent farmers? No, I do not. And so the answer is this.
You oppose all pipelines because you don't think
necessary.
Farmers and everyday people should be choking in our air. Air is like not.
So I'm going to answer. I'm answering your question, but it may not be the answer you want. But I'm giving you a hard answer to your question. Here's the truth, and in this one, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes to, because I think that you might even be on the same side of understanding the hoax here. The biggest opponents to fossil fuels in the United States are also the biggest opponent, are also perfectly fine, by the way, with shifting those same carbon emissions to places like China. Now, here's a further mystery. You would think if we're fighting global climate change, those same carbon emissions in China, how does that work? They're over there in China, but we stop them over here. Interesting how that works. Now you go one level deeper. The same people who are most opposed to fossil fuels in the United States are also the biggest opponents to nuclear energy, which is the greatest form of carbon-free energy production known to mankind. This doesn't make sense. I'm not done yet. Excuse me, I'm not done yet, ma'am. And we want to be respectful. I'm going to finish this, and we're going to go to the next question. The answer is the climate change agenda has nothing to do with the climate, because if it did, these people would be embracing nuclear energy, and these people would be opposed to China doing what they are. This is about China catching up to the United States of America. And I refuse to flog ourselves wearing a hair shirt for a quasi-religious cult that has caused us to abandon our modern way of life. More people are dying of bad climate change policies than they are of climate change itself. And I will not stand for that level of an assault on our modern way of life. So, thank you. Thank you for your question. I appreciate it. And I want to be respectful of the audience, and we'll take some other questions. Thank you. Sir, right there. Thank you. Thank you. You've had your chance. Thank you. Would you like to have a seat? And you can have your chance to listen. Thank you. We're going to go right there for the question. You had your chance, and I appreciate you asking your question. Right there, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. She has her right to speak. We'll respect it, and that's fine. That's free speech in America. Hey, how about your future First Lady right here? We got it warmed up for you. How's your vet? Good. She just been crisscrossing the state of Puerto Rico. She's a throat surgeon, saves lives in her day job, and is crisscrossing this state with us on the weekends over the last year. She's going to set an example for this country, and I'm so proud of her for our ability to do this as a family. So we're doing this together. Young man, we're going to go to you. Thank you. I don't know if we have a microphone for him. Let's pass it along. Thank you, man. Oh, that guy, right? With the hat. Tell me your name, though. I don't know your name.
Jordan, precinct captain. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you working hard for us.
So as each year goes on, my eyes are opened wider to what's really going on behind the scenes. In many senses, this is a positive, doing a deep analysis, knowing what's going on, a sense of maturity. But also the cons, sense of pessimism, criticism, maybe a bad mindset.
Yeah.
I'm just curious for you, maybe what's the most apparent or the most recent opening, widening of your eyes to what's going on behind the scenes? And what can all of us do to counteract that potential downside of pessimism and criticism?
Deep question. I mean, I think that I'll start with a specific example that I've talked about recently that has probably is responsible for why you don't hear about me from the mainstream media anymore, is after I started talking about this. 3 years ago, if you had told me when I was a biotech CEO, building a company, and writing Woke Inc., I was a conservative, anti-woke, and all of that. But if you told me that January 6th was in any way the product of government entrapment, I would have told you that's crazy talk. Fringe conspiracy stuff. You ask about ways my eyes have been opened. That wasn't my job then. I'm a CEO. I think I'm skeptical of what the media feeds me, but then at the end of the day, you got a day job, you're a passive consumer, and you do swallow what you're force-fed whether you know it or not. I think the evidence now points to the fact that the government absolutely has not told us the whole truth of what happened that day. Why certain video footage was released while others was not. Why Capitol police officers arrested the very people they allowed into the FBI, into the Capitol that day. Christopher Wray's non-transparency in testifying before the government. So it's just one systematic example. Then you go back and say, wait a minute, is this part of a pattern? The same government, actually now, that reminds me, back then, is the same one that told me if I said that the COVID-19 pandemic began in a lab in Wuhan, you'd be shouted down not only as a racist, you'd have your social media account locked, censored for actually saying it. Now, the same thing, okay, wait, that's the same government that if I sent you the Hunter Biden laptop story, they would censor you for actually stating it, which suggests that the pattern is the more censored a piece of information is, the irony in our country is actually today, if you look at the last few years, the more likely it is to be true, which is the perverted reality. In the name of fighting misinformation, we've actually created more of that misinformation. So those are examples of where my own eyes have been opened. Maybe what I would have told you even 3 years ago is different than what I tell you today as the facts have now become apparent. We can see it with clear eyes and deserve to call it out. Now, how do you see that without just drowning in pessimism, which is the heart of your question? How old are you, if you don't mind me asking you? 25 years old. We have the epidemic of depression, anxiety, fentanyl, suicide amongst people in my generation and yours. And so when the reality looks that bleak, how do you find optimism on the other side of it? Look, I think we live in a 1776 moment right now in this country. Think about it. What a special time that would have been to be alive in 1776, in the spring of 1776. They would have had every reason to wallow in victimhood. Subjects of King George being taxed without representation. Some guy on the other side of the Atlantic who you've never met, oppressing you. It's as bad as the situation is that we're living in today. It's not quite there yet, right? It's where we're headed, but it's not quite there yet. And yet it was precisely then. Now, today, you want to get the truth? Well, you could still, I didn't have the time to do it, but if I did, you can do your own research still on the internet. You can acquire knowledge yourself. Back then, if you want to read a book, it was 2 weeks to order that book. Had to ship it from one place to another. At minimum, it could be weeks to months before you find it. In that era, our founding fathers, they were the ones who signed the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson did it at an age between yours and mine. He was 33 years old when he signed that Declaration of Independence. He invented the swivel chair while he was at it. Benjamin Franklin invented the Franklin stove, great inventor. Dabbled in a lot of different things, co-signed that Declaration of Independence. Robert Livingston, who we sent as an ambassador to France, was somebody who also invented a component of the steamship while he was actually signing the Declaration of Independence and serving as an ambassador abroad. So what does that tell you? I think that the moments we live in, where you're under the oppression of King George or you're under the oppression of the modern administrative state, it's actually an opportunity for us to revive. We don't live in ordinary times. We live in extraordinary times, and that's a special opportunity, especially for young people, to step up and embrace the spirit of the American Revolution. How about that? Those founding ideals. It's not just the founding ideals in the Constitution, it's that founding culture. That culture that says, you know what, if you're Thomas Jefferson, yeah, I'm going to invent the swivel chair, and yes, I'm going to write the Declaration of Independence, and yes, I'm going to do whatever darn well I feel like doing. Not going to be told to shut up, sit down, do as you're told because you're not an expert. You didn't have a degree in that. That's what we would tell the Benjamin Franklins and the Thomas Jeffersons of today. So my advice to you at the age of 25, and I have to admit, I haven't always done a perfect job of following it myself, is don't get mired in that present. See it for what it is, but say, we're going there. We're the pioneers. We're the explorers, the unafraid. That's who our founding fathers were. I think that's who the next generation in this country can be as well. The challenges you're going to face and the opportunities you're going to face are different than even what I'm talking to you about today, about the future of AI and what that does in opening up human potential, while also posing some of the most frightening risks we're going to face in your generation. So just say, we're mired here, we're going to see that with clear eyes, but we're still going there. And I think it's going to help to have a leader with fresh legs from the next generation to reach and lead a new generation of Americans. I think it's going to take somebody whose best days in life are still yet ahead. And I don't take that for granted. Every day is a gift, but I hope and pray our best days in life are still ahead of us. Somebody whose best days in life are still ahead, to see a country whose best days are still ahead of itself. And so I'll do my part as your president, and I'll ask you to open your eyes and do yours too. Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing for us in this campaign. I appreciate it. We got there, and then we'll come right to you. And then we'll come to this woman right here. Okay, right. Oh, good to see you again. Yeah, thank you. We'll go there. We also got a lot of questions in the back, so Tommy, you just keep going around the horn. You start right here.
Hi, my name's Trevor. I just wanted to say I appreciate you coming out here tonight. I know the roads were real hectic coming into the storm.
These were the easy roads. We went to other parts that were a little more challenging. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Talking to us, it definitely means a lot, and hope you guys get home safe.
Thank you.
But one question that I have for you is, what's something that you as a presidential candidate and you as president can promise to us as voters to see in a Ramaswamy presidency? So by year one, what's a measurable or tangible thing that we as voters can see that you can promise to us or can tell us that we can see, whether it be inflation decreased by a certain percentage, whether it be immigration reform and shown that these numbers have gone down?
Yep.
Something that we can see by year one, by year 2, year 3, year 4.
I love that, man. What's your name?
Trevor.
Trevor? So the reason I like the way you frame, I'm going to answer the question, but I'm going to say something I love the way that question lands with me is, when I've built businesses, that sounds like the kind of question I would ask somebody in a job interview. And that's what this is. This is a job interview. I report to you, the people of this country, not some mega donor class or otherwise. So you deserve accountability and milestones. Those are the kinds of questions I was asking when I was sitting in your seat hiring people. Now you're the person doing the hiring. So I appreciate that. I'll tell you what the milestones are in the first year. Most important agenda, shut down that deep state. 75% mass reduction. 50% of the federal employees currently working in the federal government will not be working for the federal government by the end of year one. That's one answer to your question. I'm going to keep going down the list. Anybody who's in this country illegally will already be or on their way to be mass deported out of this country. If you're in this country illegally, you have no business staying here. Our southern border will be sealed. The rate of illegal mass migration into this country will be restored to what it was half a century or further ago after we've militarized our southern border. We will have our own troops lining our entire southern border and our northern border too. That's what it means to actually protect our borders. That will be done not just by the end of the first year. It'll be done by the end of March of 2025. That's where we hit that milestone. I'll keep going straight down the list. Thank you. Thank you. Our economy, our GDP growth rate should be back to over 4% GDP growth, I believe, by the end of my second year of my presidency. I'm going to be able to get us there with no problem if we're able to do exactly what I'm going to do, is rescind those unconstitutional federal regulations. And before our next cycle of midterm elections, I will deliver to you our main legislative agenda. Most of what I'm promising you is what I'm going to do as your next U.S. president without asking Congress for permission or for forgiveness. And I won't apologize for that as your commander-in-chief, using our troops to protect our borders. As your commander-in-chief, running the executive branch and shutting down the agencies that shouldn't exist. By the end of the first year, the FBI will not exist. The Department of Education will not exist. The CDC will not exist. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission will not exist. But the one law I will have failed if I did not get this through Congress by the end of my first year and a half, ahead of the midterm elections that'll come after I'm elected in 2026, is minimal federal standards for federal elections. Single-day voting on election day, national holiday, paper ballots, government-issued ID, and English as the sole language that appears on a ballot. That's what I want you to hold me accountable to. And if we get to 2028, get me the heck out of there if I haven't done that for you. Thank you. Great question, and I hope I gave you a clear answer. Thank you.
Hi, Vivek. My name's Tom. I want to talk about taxes a little bit. Last 20 years, all I've heard is I need to pay my fair share. Nobody tells me what my fair share is. Now, a thought I have here, and I want your just opinion on this.
Sure.
Why don't we go to a flat tax system?
Dude, you took the words out of my mouth. We need a...
No.
Yeah, I love it.
Why can't we sit and put a number and say there are no taxes on the first $50,000 or $60,000? After that, it's a flat 25% with no deductions for individuals or corporations.
So we are mostly on the same page there. I think we have some differences in the numbers. At the level that I plan to slash and burn the federal bureaucracy, and my plan, which is an aggressive but quickly implementable plan to pay down our national debt, it's a simple plan. Get the oil and natural gas out from underneath our ground, sell it, buy down our national debt, don't fight foreign wars that don't advance our national interests, and cut 75% of the bureaucracy. After that, it's not going to be a 25% flat tax. 12% flat tax across the board. Eliminate the cronyist deductions. And then the other place where it's just a slight nuance of difference with you, sir, is that I actually believe that every American should pay some amount of tax, actually, because they got to have skin in the game. So I wouldn't say that people under 60 or 70,000, I wouldn't do that. I think the rate should be low. It will be, you could say it should be lower for them than it is now, so they don't have a tax increase to the 12%. But I do think every American should understand that when the federal government is spending our money, it's really spending our money. The way I've run my companies, okay, my employees who've worked for me, and they're not a good fit, and it happens from time to time where somebody isn't. You spend the company's money like it's your own money. What if our government bureaucrats behaved the same way? They treat it like it's their own money, but in a different sense, right? I mean, we might have siphoning it off in the form of corruption to their pocketbooks. But I believe that with the level of cuts we're bringing to the federal bureaucracy, with zero-based budgeting, it's going to be a 12% flat tax, eliminate the cronyist deductions, eliminate $750 billion of tax compliance costs every year, for God's sake. That's a big part of how we're going to grow this economy. And so we're on the same page. Simple flat tax, make it simplified, and we'll be able to shut down the IRS in the process because we don't need a separate agency to actually do it. Thank you. I appreciate that, sir. We'll cover. Right, okay. Yeah, so what we have right now, I'm going to keep the same system intact, which is until the first 11 million, we have no inheritance tax. That expires, I want to say, in about 2026. I think we need to make that permanent. Above that, the level is 40%. I just want 12% across the board. Take that 40, make it 12. 12% flat tax across the board means 12% flat tax across the board. So that's what the answer is. Good to see you again, ma'am. We can give you a chance to ask your question. I know you had one for me the last couple of nights. You can ask one to me again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your vision and your future policies within the United States. I pretty much agree on most of what you say.
Thank you.
But again, my question is on international policy.
Yeah.
After hearing your speeches, from what I understand, your stance on Ukraine-Russia war is diplomacy. So basically, you would like to have negotiations with dictator, aggressor, who unprovokedly invaded, attacked sovereign European nation. So I'm sure you'll agree with the phrase that those who don't learn from history doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on Neville Chamberlain, of how he handled Hitler and German Nazi behavior, what ultimately led to World War II?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the thoughtful question. And remind me your name again? Lottie, yeah. Like game, actually, I know that you braved a long drive because it had to be the same drive from Northwest Iowa that we did as well. So for that, I would say you're pretty brave. And I want to just, if you don't mind, for me sharing with the group here where we left off at that pizza ranch late night before we embarked on for us it was like 5 hours to get back here. I don't know about you. Yeah, we went slowly, and I'm glad we're both here safely for it. The last thing I said is we have a different view on the Ukraine war, okay, and how the U.S. should handle it. And I respect that difference of opinion. Lottie believes that the U.S. should be doing more to support Ukraine, to defeat Russia, if I'm getting your view right, to prevent any territorial concession, because that's what victory has to look like, and the U.S. has an obligation to arm Ukraine to the fullest extent to do that possible. And I believe in representing your view fairly, because that's what you believe. I believe that this war does not advance our interests. And you know what? We are in many ways increasing the risk of major conflict by driving Russia further into China's hands, and that we're failing in the United States to use our own military resources to adequately protect our own homeland. But I think that there's, and I appreciate those who agree with me on that, I think there's a divide in the Republican Party. Most of the Republican Party is actually on Lottie's side, not on my side of this issue, so it's worth calling that out. I am in the minority in the Republican Party. When I first adopted this position, I was in the extreme minority in the Republican Party. The cows have slowly started to come home, and I think, unfortunately, my view has aged well. I don't say that to brag, I say that to learn. It's entirely unclear what the next $100 billion is going to do that the first $100 billion didn't already do. But I think the reason I have respect and empathy for your position is that you are a Ukrainian citizen. And if I were a Ukrainian citizen, I would probably feel the same way. But I'm an American citizen. I'm not running for president of Ukraine. I'm not running for president of any other nation but this one, the United States of America. As a father, my moral obligation is to my family, period. I won't be shaken in that. And as your next president, my moral obligation is to the citizens of this country, not another one. Now, we have allies, and we have to stand by allies over the long run, but the question is, what advances our long-run interest? And so the deal I would do is, because I'll tell you what I'm worried about. I think we're closer to World War III than we've ever been in my lifetime. I think Russia and China are in a military alliance with one another, and we're strengthening that alliance by further arming Ukraine to the teeth and driving Russia further into China's hands. I think we're $34 trillion into national debt ourselves here in the United States of America, and don't have the luxury when we're vulnerable to super EMP attacks and cyber attacks. And you want to talk about invasions? We have an invasion on our own southern border in this country. To actually say that if we're not dealing with the invasion on our own border, what business do we have spending $35 trillion worth of national debt on somebody else's border when it doesn't advance our own interest and increases the risk of World War III? And so I respect the fact that we have different points of view because we're citizens of different countries. But I will never begrudge somebody who's leading their country with their own interests. You got leaders from Italy, Giorgia Meloni, to Viktor Orban in Hungary, to Bukele in El Salvador, all of whom are doing a much better job of leading their country than the leaders of this country are in leading our own. And so I don't think I should apologize for saying my moral obligation is to the citizens of this nation. But with that, USA is what we stand for, and that's what we're here to stand for. And part of USA is that you get to speak your mind freely, even if you disagree with the person who's the president of the United States or somebody who's running for president. And so I think that, too, is part of the beauty of this country. And I thank you, and I thank the woman earlier and everyone else for expressing a contrary view. So we're going to go right up here to this gentleman to answer this question.
I'm Wayne. I think your ideas about string elections or making them reliable make sense.
Thank you.
What can you do at the federal level to actually require states to roll with your ideas? And two, in the event that the elections don't have your ideas this time around, will you have confidence in the outcome?
Yeah. Those are fair questions, Wayne. Let me address the first one, actually, because on a technical level, this is a really important question. The elections are run for good reason by the states, and we're going to keep it that way. But we have a long-standing tradition of the federal government setting minimal standards for state elections. It goes back to the HAVA Act, even back in 2001, about federal funding to states is still contingent on states having certain minimal standards for what constitutes a federal election. So the administration of the elections will still be done by the states, but the minimal federal standards, including the conditions for federal funding of states, will be tied to minimal standards they have to adopt. Now, the states, I guess, are then free to decide what standards they're going to set for their state and local elections. But generally, those same standards, it's the same elections where they're conducted. So all elections will end up being conducted that way. That's the answer to the first question. And the second question is, what confidence do we have in this election? And I want to have some real talk here. because we all have a decision to make. Well, the people, certainly the Iowa caucus, have a decision to make on January 15th. I think they're leading us into a trap right now. And it pains me to watch us slowly walk into it, and it goes to the heart of why I'm in this race. If you think they're going to let Donald J. Trump get anywhere near the White House again, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes. Last time it was a man-made pandemic and a tech-rigged election, and worse. This time these people will stop at nothing. And I mean nothing. To keep this man never anywhere near within spitting distance of the White House again. And they're selling us the rope today that they will use to hang us tomorrow. I'm going to be very explicit at this point. I'm not going to hide the ball on what I believe is happening. I think they want this to be a two-horse race between Donald Trump and a puppet who they can control, to eliminate Donald Trump from contention, and then to waltz their own chosen puppet into the White House. I initially assumed that was going to be a Democrat. I'm increasingly convinced it's actually a Republican. And I think if you look at the mainstream media's treatment to actually the super PAC industrial complex, somebody who keeps the foreign war machine humming while also censoring speech more than the Democrats could have imagined, only Dick Cheney would be proud of it. That's what it looks like in the United States of America today. We cannot fall into that trap. Do not fall for that trap. We owe it to this country. Donald Trump, he got this fight started and we love him for it, but it is our job to finish it. Our America First agenda cannot end with Trump. It did not start in 2016. It started, as I said, in 1776. It is our obligation to our founding fathers and to this country to make sure that we have another 250 years still left. You got the future of America First standing right here in front of you. I am asking you to do the right thing on January 15th for our country. If you want to save Trump, if you want to save this country, I'm asking you to actually vote for me. And I know that's counterintuitive. That's different than what you might have thought 3 or 6 months ago. But I'm asking you to open your eyes. First, it's the protest. Then it's the civil suit. Then it's the state-level prosecution. Then it's the first federal prosecution. Then the second one. Then you get to no judicial system at all. Just take him off the ballot entirely. And I have stood against this more than anybody else in this race. At every step, I have pushed back against this. I've made a FOIA and legal demands of the Biden administration to tell the truth about what Merrick Garland and Joe Biden told Jack Smith. When they threatened to remove Trump from the ballots in Maine and Colorado, I said every Republican needs to remove themselves from those ballots too, so we protect ourselves against election interference, not even in the general, but in our own primary. But at a certain point, we cannot fall into the trap that's been laid for us. And I just want you to ask yourself, for those of you who are considering your final choices, if it's between the two America First candidates, Donald Trump and myself, I'm going to ask you to fast forward a year from now. God forbid whatever this year has in store. Are you going to say next year when you look back and say, oh, we're shocked that that happened? Or are you going to say, what were we thinking walking into the trap that they laid for us? Do not fall for their trick. That is what I'm asking you to do, to open your eyes, to skate to where the puck is going. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We will not be fooled this time over. It's my job to take our America First agenda to the next level. We will honor his legacy as much as we can, and that's the right thing to do for this country. I've done it in this race, and I'll do it as your next president. But am I confident in the result of this election? No, is the answer to that question. This has to be a landslide, a moral mandate like what Ronald Reagan delivered in 1980. And a landslide minus some shenanigans is still going to be a decisive victory. That's what we require. And I believe if you make me your nominee, you ask me what you're going to hold me accountable to as your next president. Here's what you hold me accountable to if you make me your nominee. I'm asking you to make me your nominee. I'm asking for your vote on January 15th. And if you guys do your part, Apoorv and I are going to do ours, Our accountability back to you is that in November of this year, we will deliver you a landslide election on a scale of what Reagan did in 1980 and reunite this country and revive this country in the process. That's the way we're going to do this. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you, Wayne. Thank you. Young man right there. Thank you. Okay, Tommy, here, you go back there. I don't want to make him... Getting your workout tonight, man.
Reagan.
Yes.
This is our son, Dutch.
Oh, hey, good to see you.
And he has a question for you. He's 10 years old.
Hey.
So you say your plan to cut debt of America is to get rid of unneeded jobs. And I just want to ask, what jobs aren't important enough and what job has such a high paying that will get rid of trillions of dollars?
It's a great question, young man. I appreciate it. This is getting detailed. Well, Dutch, we have an opening in the Office of Management and Budget that I've been looking to fill, and I do believe in fresh blood. So thank you for asking. The question. So to be clear, because actually I don't want to leave you with a misimpression. If you on the math of it, the biggest piece of addressing the national debt crisis is actually getting the oil and gas out from underneath our ground and selling it to the tune of $8 trillion that we can buy down of our national debt. Next is the two wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Those two wars are responsible for $7 trillion of our national debt. Think about that. So that, if we avoid making those same mistakes as I worry we're about to make in other regions of the world, that automatically gets us on a better trajectory. Then I'm bringing zero-based budgeting, which is saying that the entire federal government, we're just starting with zero as the baseline. And then I'm also adding to that a 75% headcount reduction. Now, these people, they're paid a lot of money by American standards, but they're not being paid millions of dollars in the federal bureaucracy. It's not that we're just saving the money of their salaries. That's actually a relatively small piece of it. We're saving the money of what they spend our taxpayer money on that actually Congress never authorized. The U.S. Federal Reserve. The reason I'm going to fire 90% of the headcount at the U.S. Federal Reserve isn't because the salaries are adding too much of an expense, though I wouldn't mind those savings too. There's 23,000 employees there, okay? We have a 90% headcount reduction. We need less than 2,000. 23,000 times, about $250,000 on average is something that, because you're a smart guy, you're probably going to tell us what the answer is. But it's not enough to attack the multi-trillion-dollar problem we have. The problem with have that many people at the Federal Reserve is they start finding random things to do. Raining money from on high like manna from heaven, according to tackling inflation and unemployment and doing neither. The central bank digital currency, the CBDC. Digitizing your dollar, which is nothing more than a backdoor infringement of our liberties. That's coming here soon, unless you have a president who puts an end to it. So that's why I'm coming from the mass firings. It's not just the salary cost. It's the damage that those excess people actually do. And so that's why I stand for what I do. And I'm proud of you for being here 10 years old on a given night. And thank you for asking a smart question tonight. It gives me a lot of hope. And we're going to come right around to these two guys right here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking questions from young people like this clever young man over here. I just turned 21 recently. I got to be honest. Like many young people, 3/4 of them, including one that was just here, I am worried about climate change, and I don't think it's a hoax, and I don't think that a lot of people in this country do.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where those stats are coming from. I think a lot of young people also...
I've written about this extensively, but you deserve facts, and the citations are all in my most recent book. Amen.
Thank you. And I think another thing that young people care about, too, is, getting corruption out of Washington. And so my question is, does you calling climate change a hoax have anything to do with the tons of money you make off oil and gas investments?
No is the answer to that question. So that's the easy answer to that question. I think what our electric vehicle subsidies have a lot to do with is actually the fact that a lot of people are making money off of a green agenda that doesn't advance our interests, lobbying for actually a lot of the special cronyist subsidies in this country. And so the truth of the matter is, what actually empowered advances in human flourishing and human lifespan has actually been greater advances that have been powered by more advances in fossil fuels. And I didn't say climate change is a hoax, because are global surface temperatures going up a little bit? Yes, they are. I've said that. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing. The climate change agenda is a hoax. Because the fact that global surface temperatures are going up, climate change has existed as long as man has existed as long as the earth has existed. Right? More people have died of ice ages than have died of heat waves. Last year, in the year 2023, 8 times as many people died of cold temperatures rather than warm ones, and we're sitting here worrying about an infinitesimally small rise in global surface temperatures. I think what's going on, so we got 2 questions tonight. I'm going to really unleash on this because I think there's something deeper going on.
If there's an agenda in that, I would just ask, would you then refuse to take oil and gas money in your campaign?
Yes. I don't need corporate money, period. I'm putting $30 million of my own hard-earned money into this campaign because I don't want to be somebody else's stooge. I don't want to be somebody's circus monkey. I don't want, any corporate money. We have no interest in corporate money to a campaign. The people, presidential candidates spend most of their time talking to mega donors. I want to end the super PACs. The super PACs are a corrupt cancer on American politics. From pharma to the clean energy to green energy to fossil fuels, it's all corrupt. Fossil fuel industry actually lobbied for the absence of consumer choice at the pump. That's why I stand for the renewable fuel standard favoring at least minimal ethanol blends. So I am against all kinds of crony capitalism. But the thing that's going on with the climate, I just want to say something deeper that's going on here. I feel that you may disagree with what I'm about to say, but I think it's important for me to say it nonetheless, because I think it's the truth. I think it's no accident that at the same time in our national history that we see the decline or disappearance of faith, patriotism, hard work, family, that we see the rise of new quasi-religious belief systems. And you could pick your favorite one: wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism. I think COVIDism became a form of belief system in this country. That at the same time you see the rise of fentanyl and suicide and anxiety and depression. I think these are substitutes for a deeper need of purpose and meaning in our lives right now. We as human beings are wired to believe in something bigger than ourselves. And today, we hunger for that, yet we can't even answer what it means to be an American. I think it's not an accident that we see the rise of, I'll go to a different topic, but it's the same trend. It's precisely when we get as close as we've ever been to the promised land when it comes to civil rights on axes of race or gender or anything else, that we then talk about systemic racism and white guilt. Or the same thing with respect to a point in our history where in most states, if not every state in this union, you can enter and marry who you want, if you want, dress how you want. As a man, woman, doesn't matter, as a fully grown adult, that we then start obsessing over making sure that it's a microaggression unless you actually foist this onto our children. There's something weird going on in this country right now. And I think it takes a president who can open their eyes and see it to understand we're not just going to, my goal isn't to scold this out of existence. If they come for me claiming, as LinkedIn did, Microsoft owned LinkedIn, what did they say is they locked my account for stating some of the very hard facts that I'm giving here. Go to Bjorn Lomborg. Go to the Copenhagen Institute. You can go others, we're asking for sourcing. That's where it comes from, and amongst others. Read Alex Epstein. Read Steve Koonin, who, for God's sakes, is a physicist in the Obama administration's energy department that wrote a book called Unsettled. And the thesis is kind of what it sounds like. Goes into the actual ambiguities of the real science as opposed to the media's kindergarten distillation of it, that the people who are actually consuming it don't know the difference between. And so I think it takes scratching beneath the surface of that, not just scolding it out of existence, but understanding there's a deeper void here. And I predict that if we see the revival of faith in God in this country, a revival of patriotism and hard work and the grounding of the family, yes, the nuclear family in this country, I think we're going to see a decline in violent crime, in drug usage, in depression, in climate fanaticism, in wokeism. I think that's the way. We're going there. That's why it's going to take a different kind of president, somebody who's a little different this time around. I'm not a politician, for better or worse. I hope it's for the better. Somebody who's an entrepreneur, but also a father of 2 sons. somebody to whom this country has given so much that it's our sense of gratitude to give back to this country that guides us. It's not vengeance. It's not hostility towards hostile questions at all. I embrace them. I'm actually grateful for you asking that question. You should have.
And all of you are here for the same reason, as you care about this country. Disagree with us or not.
Vivek, I just, first of all, want to say I appreciate your willingness to speak the truth. I appreciate the length at which you've gone to reach voters like myself and others here in Iowa. And I appreciate the depth that you've brought to this presidential race. My question is there a pillar of your campaign that you feel has been most misrepresented or misunderstood from the beginning to now? And then kind of a two-parter, is there a pillar of your campaign that you feel has evolved or changed the most from the beginning to now as well?
I think the civic duty voting has been misrepresented, for sure. I'll tell you what one of my beliefs is. I believe that every high school senior who graduates from high school should have to pass the same civics test that every immigrant has to pass to become a voting citizen of this country. That's what I believe. I mean, you got to have skin in the game. When I wrote my first book, The Woke Game, and this isn't one that's changed since I'll use the same one to answer both questions. When I wrote Woke King, that was my first book a few years ago, I get people, I'm grateful, come up and tell me they love the book and I sign it. I sign it, but I always tell them I agree with about 95% of what's in there. That was the first of my 3 books. And at that point, I was pretty darn close to, I think, favoring mandatory military service in the United States. Because I think, again, it's back to the answer to that last question. We have that missing vacuum of purpose. And civic duty is something that can fill that vacuum. And so, mandatory military service, other countries have found it works. It's not a good example to use in the current context, but Israel, for most of its history, there have been mistakes that were made in protecting their own borders, but even in terms of civic identity, yes, it has worked in Israel, a place like South Korea, but that's not the way that the United States. And so my views have evolved there, from not the start of my campaign, but the start of when I wrote my first book, to land on a policy that says you at least have to know something about the country in order to become a voting citizen of that country. That's not a new idea. We already require it of immigrants. If you're coming to this country legally, we still say you got to know something about the country and pass a civics test to prove it, at minimum, to be able to have skin in the game. And that was misrepresented, largely by the left, saying that this was just a ploy for Jim Crow 2.0. They use that for everything. I mean, it's like, I don't know what there's a purposeful effort to deny the next generation any knowledge of who this man named Jim Crow ever was. Because as far as a 10-year-old might look at it, it applies to everything in the modern United States of America. Voting ID is, they think Jim Crow is like a little plastic ID that fits in your wallet called your driver's license, right? That's what a young kid in this country would taught to believe. It is. No, the goal is not to disenfranchise anybody. It's to revive actual civic duty and civic purpose in a new generation that's missing it. And I do think that one has been, I picked that because I actually unveiled it here in Iowa, not that far from where we are right now. It got a major wave of pushback. But I'll tell you a story of one of our good friends in life who we've actually made in the last year, who's actually in Iowa. And she's a special person who's become a friend of ours. She's an entrepreneur. She sells rabbits. She's a farmer, a livestock farmer of animals. She has been very successful in building that business of her own. She heard about this, and she came to one of our events, and she printed out for me. Most adults fail the civics test, even in the United States. 100-question civics test. She had a handwritten note on it, and she handed it to me and said, you know what, I just wanted to take this myself. And I got 100 out of 100 on it. Now, I said I was proud of her for it. Now, here's the part I left out. She was 10 years old, and her name is Lena Anderson, and she and her parents have become our dear friends through this campaign. But it gives me hope that somebody, a 10-year-old girl, took that as a challenge and decided that she wanted to know enough about this country to care about this country and demonstrate that as a mark of achievement. And so that's something I still stand by, and I think it's going to be good for our country to revive that level of civic duty. So it's a great question, maybe reflect on that. And hopefully, at least it's better understood the more we talk about it. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Last question, thank you. We're having too much fun. Right here, sir. I promise you.
My name is David. I've got a million questions. What can you do when you become president? Are you changing things back as best you can? What's to stop a Democrat to come back in and pass it up?
Well, I mean, the short answer to that question is it's us, it's the voters, actually. In some ways, we've become a nation of sheep. We really behave like it at times, and a nation of sheep is what breeds a government of wolves. That's actually what the Constitution, including the Second Amendment, is all about. We often fall into the trap of blaming the top-down problem, and it's my job to get in there and fix that top-down problem. I'm going to be your U.S. president, fix that deep state, and cut it to size, which is pretty darn close to zero. It's my job to get that done. But this is stuff of ancient scripture, actually. The book of Exodus. What does it say? When the Israelites escaped from the Pharaoh, they're lost in the wilderness. What do they say? They want to go back and be ruled by the Pharaoh. Back to that question about climate. What is it inside each of us that makes us want to bend the knee? We can complain about the Pharaoh all we want. We got to look inside deep and ask ourselves, what is it that makes us want to comply? And so the ultimate defense is a citizenry that doesn't behave like sheep. A citizenry that knows something about a country that we require at least the immigrants of this country to know. To say that actually we know about our history, we're proud of that, we understand it, rather than just being a bunch of automatons, two-legged hired mammals, walking the geographic space we call a country with a bunch of different shades of melanin, celebrating our diversity, doing what our iPhones told us to do on a given day. That's not a country. That's not the United States of America. The United States of America is a vision of what that place can be. And so the most important thing is we got to each answer that question for ourselves. Now, as a practical matter, most of what I'm going to get done as your next president is shutting down that deep state. The president has the power to shut it down. The president does not have the unilateral power to bring it back. That requires actually budgeting the money that goes through Congress. So the things that I'm telling you I'm going to do are shut down the FBI, the ATF, the CDC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, fire 75% of those federal bureaucrats. I will do that as your next president. The next president, by definition, can't bring that back because it requires authorization to go back through Congress. And the Supreme Court agrees with me 6-3 on everything I'm telling you. And so now it's going to take a president, not just who brings sharp elbows and can break things, and I bring that, and I think we require it, but also a president who knows and deeply understands the law and the Constitution of this country. And those two things don't usually go together. Now you have the the business guy over here, you got the entrepreneur and type over there, and you got the legal academic type over here. Those two things don't usually go together, but that's what gives us our sense of purpose, our sense of duty in this race. It's going to take both of those things to get this done, and that's why I'm doing something that a year and a half ago I told you would have been a sharp in the eye. Is that I think that's what this country requires in the moment that we're in. And before we wrap, I just want to give you guys a chance to hear from your future First Lady, or maybe share a few words with any of our elderly friends here, and then we'll wrap this up.
So, a year ago, as Vivek mentioned, my husband came up to me and told me that he thought he needed to run for United States President, which is a pretty crazy thing for anyone to say to you, but it was especially crazy for us. I, 7 months ago, had just given birth to our youngest son. I was working as a surgeon. Vivek had just started, was running a new company. We had another 3-year-old. Our lives were very full. So why are we here today? It's because of those 2 kids and their generation. That Vivek has told you, he is the person who's going to actually restore that sense of meaning for our nation. And why do I think so? So Vivek and I met, he was in law school, I was in med school. He was not only the rare Republican at Yale Law School, but he was also at the top of his class and working the whole time. He was working as an investor in medicine. And what he realized through that process is that the pharma industry is corrupt and does not work well. Who here agrees with me? Graduating from law school, Vivek came to me and told me, Apoorva, pharma makes drugs that cost too much, it takes too long to develop, and most of the time, they don't even really cure your disease, they just make sure you keep taking medicines for the rest of your life. I think we can do this better. I think I want to start a company to fix this. And so, we were young at the time. He was 28, I was 24. I said, hey, do you think maybe you want to try working for one of these companies first, see how the system works, then maybe try starting a company? And he said, no. These companies, these bureaucracies, that is where the corruption lies. We need to get an outsider in there to show that this can be done better. And so that's what he did. In 1 decade, that company has produced 5 FDA-approved drugs. One of them is for children who, when I was in med school, I learned that most of these kids would die before the age of 2 because they had no immune system. Because of a one-time therapy developed by this company, most of those kids can lead normal lives. So that's what he was doing in 2020 when he came to me with a new problem. He told me, Apoorva, I see something else going on now. There's companies called BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard who are trying to tell CEOs like me how to run our companies. Who are the people we should be hiring? How should we be spending our money? Should we be doing changes for the climate? These things don't make sense for my investors, and they don't make sense for voters. American people should be deciding these important issues at the ballot box. It's not supposed to be decided by some CEO in Manhattan. I think we need to do something about it. So he wrote a book called Woking. It was the first time people had really heard about these issues. And then he didn't stop there. He actually stepped down as CEO of that company that he had founded, and he started a new company called Stride to be an alternative to these other companies, the BlackRock, the State Street, who are managing almost all of our investment and pension funds and actually give us an alternative so that our money can be used to actually, first of all, give us more money. Our investment funds should actually grow as opposed to be backing ideas that none of us would vote for. And so that company then became one of the leaders against the anti-ESG, in the anti-ESG movement. And so that's where he was a year ago when he came to me. He said, Apurva, there's a moral vacuum at the heart of our nation. We need someone who can restore pride in our country, faith in our military, and belief that our government is actually here to serve we the people and not the other way around. And I said, Vivek, don't you think maybe you could try being a governor or a senator? Do you think we could accomplish that? And he said, absolutely not. Because this comes from the top, from the federal government. And you need someone who's going to go in there and cut it to the ground and show us that there is a better way. And I truly think this is the only man who can do this again.
It's a good example, treating patients for the White House as well as continuing her career as a physician. I'm proud of her for that. An example that hopefully you'll hold us to. And the standard I want you to hold us to is a high standard. I would say the highest standard. Maybe that question about accountability. Here's a softer answer to that question, but maybe an even more important one. Half the job of U.S. President is the things I gave you before, the policies. The other half of the job, though, is reviving our national character, answering who we are. And I hope that you hold us to a standard that allows every parent in this country to look their kids in the eye and say, I want you to grow up and be like them. That's a standard I want you to hold us to. It's been a long time since we've held our president or our first family to that standard. That's a standard I expect you to hold us to as well. And if we do, we get the right policies enacted along the way, but we revive who we are. We don't have to be this nation in decline. We don't have to be at the end of the ancient Roman Empire. I think what George Washington would say, if he were here with us right now, what George Washington would say is, as a nation right now, we're really just a little young, actually. Going through our own version of our adolescence. Figuring out who we're going to be when we grow up. And when you view it that way, it makes sense again. You go through your adolescence, you go through that identity crisis. You do some stupid things. But we are stronger for it when we get to our adulthood on the other side. So no, I don't think we have to be that nation in decline. I think we still can be a nation in our ascent. It's going to take all of us to get there. And we're here to ask you for your help. A key step in reviving this country is next Monday night. I think it may be the most important vote you will have cast. Every one of your votes at that Iowa caucus is the equivalent of 1 million people in shaping who the next U.S. president is. If I win the Iowa caucus, I'm your next president. If I'm your next president, we revive our national character and who we are. And so I'm asking you, we are asking you to do your part. To take 30 minutes of your time. Vote at that Iowa caucus. I'm asking you to vote for me that night. I'm today asking you for your vote. And for those of you who are able, I'm asking you to take a little bit of time, even in this next week, to tell 10 people who aren't here tonight what we talked about tonight and bring them too. And if you all do your part, I promise you, Apurva and I and our family, we will stop at nothing to do ours, to make sure, not in some fake politician way, but in a true way to make sure that our country's best days are still ahead of us. That we will look our kids in the eye and mean it when we tell them that you get ahead in this country with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication, and that you know what? You are free to speak your minds. at every step of the way. That is the American dream. That is what we are running to. And with your help, that is what we will revive to save this great country. Thank you, guys. We're good. God bless you. Thank you. No, yeah, I'm going to give you the final word. Thank you.
It was good. Nice.
Thank you. We are proud to speak your minds. And thank you, guys. God bless you. God bless the United States of
Ladies and gentlemen, get on your feet and cheer with me for the truth. Cheer with me for the revival that's coming, and cheer with me photos with Vivek and the Polk. You will line up on my left, your right side of the room.
see this. Yeah, sure, go for it. I'm just going to mic you up, I think.
No, I think it's your battery.
Oh, you want to put it on you.
Oh, you okay, sure.
Yeah, he's going to have to watch the town hall.
You bet. It's good to see you. Message. You're back. Thank you. It's good to see you. How are you? Good to see you. Oh, you are. You're doing what you do, guys.
Thank you so much for coming
Means a
out.
lot.
We were down on the border for 30 days.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
It's eye-opening, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you guys done the Iowa caucus before?
No.
You got to come, and I would love to have your
Thank you.
support there. It's a very important.
Thank you so much.
Hey, it's good to see you, man. What's your name?
God bless you.
Thank you,
I'm
brother.
from rural Minnesota.
Awesome.
You
Thank you
got
for
a
being
lot
here.
of traction there, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Hard-working people.
Yes,
Yeah.
we need more of it in this
Appreciate
country.
hard-working
Love
people.
it.
You a farmer? You a farmer?
Mechanic, stuff like
Mechanic,
that.
good for
But
you.
I go to school at Drake.
Oh, nice.
They-
We're close by.
They're actually gaining traction there too, which is really
Absolutely.
interesting.
I think you can vote here if you actually are a resident.
Yeah, so I talked to someone that said I can go
Yeah.
if I register. at Drake.
Absolutely.
Anyways, nice to
Absolutely.
meet
Two
you.
forms of ID.
Come out.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome.
No, they keep going. I got it.
Thank you. Hi.
I was
Good to see you
Good
again.
to see you
You
again.
told me you were a
I
big
know,
fan.
long time no see.
I got my Trump family to switch, so
Oh, awesome. Good to see you.
I'm so excited.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
I appreciate
Thanks
it,
so
guys.
much.
I'll be there Monday.
Awesome.
It means a lot.
Hi, thank you.
I
Can
appreciate
you
it.
sign my ticket?
Yes.
The president bought me a drink.
Proud of you, man.
Thank you.
You didn't even use it.
No, well, I wanted to keep it.
Have you done a
Yeah.
caucus
Thank you.
before?
Yes, oh yeah.
Oh, amazing.
We're going to precinct captain and I'll take
Oh,
it.
awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we're
Love it.
excited. Big fan. And thank you for being a doctor.
Oh, thank you so
Bring
much
it out
for
for us.
Thank you for already proving that you already believe in us.
Hey, good
I
to
am
see
so
you.
glad that you addressed everything that was on my mind. I'm super thrilled about that. You have my support in the
That means a
caucus.
lot.
I will
Thank
be
you.
there. I will help out at the caucus in our district, so
Thank
I'm
you.
excited about that.
It means a lot. It's a cold night, so you got to motivate people
Yes.
to bring them out.
All right. Great.
Wonderful to meet you.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad
Thank you
that
for coming.
at Jennifer Briggs' house.
Oh,
It's
amazing.
it is.
Yeah, so it's
Yes,
wonderful to
and the
meet
young
you.
people are falling for it, but I can lead them. I can lead them out of
And
it.
they don't
Thank you
understand
so
how
much.
dirty the
we all
mining
came to favor
is for the
Yes.
electric vehicles.
Yes.
And the
I know.
batteries,
Trust me.
dependence on China.
And you guys came in the snow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see you,
And
Jen.
I'm Allison. I think you won me over from Trump tonight.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
I'm
for-
following
thank
you
you
on
for that.
X. You have an
Thank you.
amazing
I
social media
appreciate that.
presence. So I've
I
watched
have
about
a
every
great
video.
strategy. I try to write as many of them as possible.
And
Listen,
I love
thank
the
you.
Did you usually get him here?
And
Good
Joni
to see you,
and Jennifer Briggs.
Oh, hey, good to see you.
Yeah,
Good to
good
see
to
you,
see you.
ladies. Thank you for coming together. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you so
I'm going to keep it there.
much.
I'm not going to back off.
Do
of that
not
one.
back off.
Oh, no, no, no.
Because
We
you're doing the right
can
thing.
lead that. We're talking about
Great
thank
job.
you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Hey, get some rest.
Thank you, Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, good to see you, man. What's your name, brother?
Neil.
Neil, good to see you.
Next to you up in Perry.
Oh, that was you. Oh my
Glad
gosh.
I made it out.
Did you end up? You were sitting with me in the table to my right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, good to see you again, man. That was a pretty somber occasion. How's the community doing?
We know a few people from up there.
You're from.
I'm from Johnston.
Johnston.
So, 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
But know a lot of people around the area. So.
Thank you for coming again tonight, man.
Good to see you.
You've done the caucus before?
I'm helping run the one up in Johnston. So.
Well, love to have your vote at the caucus.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Hey.
Hi.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you for asking such a good question.
Good to
that
see you,
was
brother.
a
That
good.
was a great question.
I met you very early
Dutch,
in
right?
April.
Yes.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
My
You were in
husband's
there.
a
Oh my gosh.
surgeon.
You're a surgeon.
Yeah,
Oh, good
work
to
in
see-
healthcare.
I think you told me about him. Not really. Actually, I don't,
Not
I
as
lose
much
track
as
of
you
what day
think.
it is.
It's not worse than
Yeah.
residency.
I'd like you to sign his leg
Yes.
out.
Yes.
Oh, that's
it.
fun.
Because I think you'll be the building block
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I
to
love
make
it.
America
He did this on his own.
That's
That is
the
so
building block. Oh
awesome.
my gosh, that you're making me choke up here, man. Thank you. That is amazing. That means a lot to me. Tell, you want to show this? So Dutch wanted to. You want to tell him what it's about?
I want it because he's going to be the building block to make America better.
Thank you, man. You use this, and you're gonna. I view it the other way around. I'm gonna sign that. You're gonna be the building block, and it's your generation that we're doing it for. I'm counting on you.
Exactly.
Thank you, man. Have you done the caucus before?
Yes, and we'll be there for sure.
Thank you.
You've come so far. I mean, we have been since I met you. We met very early.
Very early.
And
Yeah.
She doesn't sound like there's this guy.
There's this guy. We got
no.
He's
Oh,
our
man.
guy. He's
Oh,
our
that's
guy.
great.
So
I
just
so
oh my
appreciate your
gosh,
support.
yeah.
You guys spread the message in the community. One
Thank
surgeon
you
to another.
so much.
Yeah.
Sleep, okay?
All right, you too,
Maybe
I'm sure.
later.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
Hey, man.
It's good to see you.
Very
How are you?
impressed.
Thank you. Brother.
Got
What's
your
your name?
first Minnesota vote here.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
to
you
see
so
you.
much.
You guys did a terrific job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate
Good luck to
you.
you.
Thank you.
Good
You
luck.
spread the message to your Iowans in the next week.
It's going all over Facebook.
Amazing.
I'm in Minnesota, but it's going all over up there.
Thank you.
Got
Thank
thousands
you.
of friends.
I appreciate it. The Iowans in the next week. Those are the special
I know.
ones.
I know.
Thank you. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it. sir.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Glenn. It's nice to see you. How you been?
How are you doing?
Hi,
I'm
thank
Jimmy
you for
Glenn.
coming.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
Can
to
I get a picture,
meet
brother?
you.
I absolutely want to see you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much
Done
for
the caucus before?
I have, absolutely.
Love to have your
You
support
got your
there.
boy. You got my vote.
Thank you.
You got my vote. I promise you
It means
that.
a lot.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
I'll
Spread
see you
this
on Monday.
message.
Yeah,
We're going to do
sure.
this.
I'm
think we're
stoked
gonna
for you,
do this.
man.
Thank you,
Stoked
brother.
for you, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It means a lot. Thank you, brother. Hi. It's good to see you.
Hi, good. I'm Patty.
Nice to meet you,
Sean.
My
Good
husband
to
Sean,
see
my
you,
brother
Sean.
Chuck.
Hey,
Hi
Chuck.
there.
Good to see
Nice
you.
to meet
Good to see you. Great to be here, guys.
You bet. Yep.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you all for
Appreciate you
coming
being
out
here.
tonight.
Spread
Really
the
appreciate
message.
it.
Have you done the caucus before?
No, but we're going.
No, we're going to go.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Love your support at the
Do it.
caucus,
We're
guys.
excited.
Bring your mittens. It's going to be cold.
I was a Trump supporter, and you changed my vote. So.
Thank you. I mean,
Wow.
that means a lot to me, and we're going to do this together.
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Hey.
Wonderful
Good
to meet
see
you.
Thank
Thank you,
man.
Vivek.
What's your name?
My name's John.
Thank you for being here, John.
Thank you for running. You are a breath of fresh air, both of you.
Thank
Listen
you.
to both of you on YouTube and everything.
Thank you.
I've never voted Republican in my life, but you are, like I said, a breath of fresh air.
Well, you
are speaking my mind.
That
I don't
means a
know
lot,
how
my man.
to convey that. It's so much is changing so fast.
Thank you.
And I love everything you're saying.
I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah.
Can I ask
My
you to
wife
come to the
too.
Iowa caucus and
Oh, definitely.
for your
I'll
vote?
be there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Be
you.
there. Yep.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I wish you both the best of luck.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
It means a lot. Thank you. Hey,
Nice to meet you, Vivek.
it's good to see you, brother. How are you?
Thank you for coming out. Nice to meet you.
Perfect.
Have you done the caucus before, bro?
I have. Now, admittedly, I did a Democratic caucus, but
Come to this one.
oh, I'm already planning to vote.
Good. I appreciate it. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
It means a lot to me.
I mean, my only concern's really around the cultural divide right now in the country and how to mend that, because I think we're living two different narratives right now.
I think that that divide is
Yeah.
more apparent in the media than it is in the real world.
I think you
That's
might
what
be
I believe.
right,
That's what I believe.
but I think you see a lot of people who are so
Falling for it.
religious about that advocacy for it, though.
Yes.
That's making it worse. But I appreciate your common sense approach to a lot of stuff.
Thank you, man. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you.
It means a lot. Thank you.
All right. Hi.
Hey, it's good to see you. What's your
Hi,
name?
guys.
What's it?
Brandy.
Brandy, thank you for coming out
Good to see you,
tonight.
man. Thank you.
Hi, you go in the middle.
Thank you, guys. Have you done the Iowa caucus before, Brandy?
I've never voted, and I tell everyone to vote for you.
That's so
Oh.
kind of you.
Everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is going to be my first caucus. I'm a libertarian, and
Awesome.
and this is going to be my first time, so I was asking lots of questions, trying to figure out what I
Love
had to
it.
do.
Love it.
Because you are going to be our next president. You need to be it.
Thank you.
This is
so much.
you are exactly what we need. I was a Ron Paul supporter back
I
in
love
the day,
Ron Paul.
and you know what? Like you are just the younger version of Ron Paul. We need you.
Thank you.
This
Means a
country
lot to
needs
me.
you.
It means a lot to me, and we're going to take that responsibility seriously. I mean, I respect. Ron Paul was, in many ways, the OG of the modern libertarian
American first
strand,
also.
and I'm taking that to not just move the conversation, but to actually implement a vision for this country. So I talk to him from time to time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I appreciate you guys.
Thank
you
you
come to the
so
caucus
much.
as well.
I'm glad. I've never voted in my life.
But you will this time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just
Thank
for you.
It means a lot to me.
Thank
Means a lot to me.
And he
Thank you.
signed up to be
Pleasure.
Precinct captain?
Oh, awesome. You're going to be
Amazing.
great.
Oh, yes, sir.
Get a lot of fellow libertarians
Yes.
out. That'd be
Oh
awesome.
man, I talk about you every day at work because there's lots of political talk at work.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, brother.
You take care, brother.
Thank you, man. I appreciate
Take
it.
care of
Hey,
this man.
Thank
good
you.
to see you.
Thank
How are you?
Hi.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Good to see
Hey
you guys.
guys.
I knew it. You were right, Amanda. It's totally a bulletproof vest. So
Is it though? It is.
fantastic as
Good to
always.
see you.
Love what
Thank
you're
you.
doing.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
I guess one more. Oh, sorry. Oh, one more. My fault.
We're so excited for Monday. We can't wait.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to dominate. I think we're going to
Victory
shock
on
the
Monday.
world.
I know
Shock
you
the
are.
world. Thank you.
I believe it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey.
Good to see you again, man. How you
Yeah,
doing?
you too.
Good,
Good.
How you been?
Pretty good, you know.
Good. Hi. Good to see you.
How are you?
As much as the weather will allow, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll be at the thing Thursday. What's his name? The house. He's having like a house thing for dinner there.
Oh, on Thursday.
Yeah.
Good.
So I
good,
got
good.
invited today, and I said, yeah, we
amazing.
can make it.
Thank
so
you, man. I
what's
appreciate
the attire for that like?
I wouldn't worry about it.
He'll probably be wearing this.
Okay, fair enough.
My attire, yeah.
Well, we got your copycat over there, so I'll try to find an outfit
Thank you.
too. Just like
I appreciate it. To be honest with you, we're like moving at a million miles.
Dude,
I look at tomorrow's schedule the day after, but it sounds like we'll see you Thursday.
Yeah, see you Thursday.
Awesome.
Man.
See you guys soon.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Hey.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Vincent again, yes.
Vincent, good to see you.
Good to see
Tell
you
me
again.
where you live again.
I'm from Florida.
Florida, good to see you.
Florida, yes.
Thanks
I
for
sent you
coming.
an email.
You're volunteering with us, right?
I'm volunteering with you, yeah.
You're knocking on the doors for us, right?
Yes. I want to take a photo with both of you.
Have you done some of the phone banking for us as
Yes,
well?
yes,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Thank
Spread
you
the
so
I
message.
did
much.
about 200 calls today.
Oh, awesome. 200
I
calls
went to
today.
this, 100
Hi.
calls today,
Good to
100
see
today.
you.
I went to the same university as your dad.
Oh,
Calicut
wow.
University, yes.
Wow.
This is a
That's
fun
so funny.
event, right?
I'd actually like to introduce you to him. He's here.
Who's it? He's here?
Yeah, they came tonight. They took care of the kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Him once.
Yeah, they're in the
I'm
corner.
on
You'll
up
probably
Okay,
Vivek's
find them.
parents
I'll go
again.
find him. Yeah, I'll go find him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He knows them. Neil, good to see you.
Good to see you, brother.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
told you I'll be there, right? That speech to immigrants idea. You will follow that?
Yeah, I do. I think that down. I think a little bit further
now.
down the line. I think that I think right now it's about nailing the key themes of the campaign. But I do like that. I think like inspirational quality of bringing that back. It goes to that national identity message. So I appreciate that. It speaks to me. Like now we're nailing the core themes. Thank you, Neil.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Let's get a picture.
Yeah. Let's get you a photo.
Yep, thank you.
Center.
Okay.
You're the first lady, right? Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. I'll see you. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
stuck
see you
here.
soon.
Get as many of those out.
No, actually, I talked to one lady today from local, and she's going to walk with me and going door to door Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
I love
I
it.
appreciate
Love
you
it,
so
love
much,
it.
brother.
Thank you.
Good man. Thank you, Neil.
Hi.
Thank you, Neil.
Hello, Glenn.
Good to see you, Wayne.
I think
Wayne,
your wife,
right?
yes, I think your wife is your secret weapon, man.
She really is, yeah. She's the better half for sure.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Good luck.
You done the caucus before?
I'm actually from California. Good to meet you.
Oh, okay.
Well, thank you for
came here
coming.
for this.
Yes.
Thank you, man. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
That's amazing.
It means a lot, brother. Hey, what's going on?
Vivek, it's Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah,
Good to meet you.
good to meet you.
I got to tell you something. I'm Vivek, by the way. Vivek, nice to meet you. So nice to meet you. Listen, it's a very important day, January 15th.
It is. It's so important.
It's
so
the
important.
most important time in this country.
It is.
It's the 75th Annual Emmy Awards.
Oh, is that right?
We need a vote for Quinta Brunson. We're going to replace the Department of Education with Abbott Elementary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's going to be
You're
huge.
operating on a different plane.
Yeah, God bless America and God bless Hollywood.
How did you become so brilliant?
Listen, I just think that,
Where'd you get your
when I was
smarts?
young, Harvard, Yale,
Yeah.
multi-billion-dollar
Okay,
companies.
Got it.
Yeah.
But the
and a
gold-
leader of a
And when
different
did you like the
generation.
Golden Globes?
I loved it.
You did?
I thought it was great.
That's good.
I thought it was
Well,
great.
thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you for doing this impersonation. I think you're doing a good job, and I'll
the
tell you what.
The impersonation. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. But keep doing your thing. I'm proud of you, and I have a feeling you're going to be in this for a long time.
Thank you.
And I think I'm going to be seeing you
I
again.
appreciate
okay?
that. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Maybe with a little less hair than you have. But.
Well, no, I think you're doing great.
I want to make sure your impersonation remains a good one.
Well, he's the impersonator.
That's funny. I just got that. Took me like 2 seconds to get that.
All right. We're good.
All right.
We're good.
Thank you for coming out, brother. Good to see you. Thank you. Where do you live?
LA.
LA. Thank you
Yeah.
for coming out.
Yeah, of course.
It's good to see
Hey,
you.
thanks for coming out. Good to see you in person. Yeah, great.
I didn't get to say properly. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Proud to have the endorsement. And
Yeah.
your
earned it.
support means a lot, man.
Yeah,
You've been
you've earned
watching you. There's not that many people who I feel like we have matched values. I don't want to seek endorsements for the sake of it, but if somebody actually shares our hard values, that we need to stand together to revive this country.
Well, you've been
I
on the
loved
road.
it.
Yeah.
We met at your event and everything else. It landed with me. The kind of people there are people, and I appreciate it. So
Yeah, you
let's
bet.
do
We're
this.
happy to be here.
Let's win this thing.
Where do I
Let's
go?
do it. I think. Come on here.
All right.
Come on here.
Come on
Yeah.
in. Hey. That was fun. This is great.
We'll first want to be saying how proud I am of Congressman Shipley's endorsement, Representative Shipley's endorsement, and maybe you want to say a few words.
Sure. So yeah, I'm
Both of
happy
us?
to stand
Okay.
here with Vivek Ramaswamy, and I first caucused in 2008. I joined that was the end of the Bush era. To make a long story short, foreign
Trip
policy
over
was the
wasn't too
biggest
bad?
thing that got me involved in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I
And
guess-
foreign policy is the most important job of a U.S. president.
A lot of
And
people
I think
flying over.
Mr. Ramaswamy has earned
Of course.
a lot of earned the support because he's taken a lot of strong positions on foreign policy that are really
Awesome.
important to the future of the nation and the future of Iowa. Not to get too far off track, but I've just been really appreciating the courage on addressing issues head on. I think if Governor Ron DeSantis had a clear position on Ukraine out the gate, I think he would have been performing even better.
I was there.
He couldn't formulate a clear stance, and look, he's lost support because of it. So I'm a foreign policy voter first and foremost. I can talk about that a lot, but also the carbon capture pipeline issue. Very important to the people of Southeast Iowa. The fact that
Awesome. Yeah, of course. Thank you.
again, private property, that they would just come and take people's stuff to pursue some again unsettled
They
agenda
changed
or very
their,
questionable
like, all
agenda.
the
So those are issues that are very important
They
to
were,
my
like,
constituents.
things that
Mr.
they were,
Ramaswamy
like,
was in my
polls that
district a
usually
few weeks
count,
ago
they
at
didn't count.
a property that would have been impacted by that pipeline. And I think the carbon capture pipeline project, maybe more than anything else, is going to determine a lot for the future of Iowa, for the future of our industry, for the future of property rights and our agriculture. So I've been very appreciative of that stance. But really, you put in the work, and it's been noticed, and just being really unafraid. And I think the weaponization of federal law enforcement is also the most important issue. And I think you've been knocking that out of the park for a few weeks straight now. And I could go on and on about all the wonderful things you've done over the course of the campaign, but I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to do or not. This is the first time I do this. So.
Yeah, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, but I stand around here and answer some questions too. But I appreciate it, man.
Sure.
The support means a lot. And I want to say a word about the carbon capture pipeline. We're actually doing an event tomorrow at the state capitol with the Free Soil Project. Steve King will be there, who we share a similar view on this issue with. I'm proud to have Steve King's endorsement. I'm proud to have Representative Shipley's endorsement. And I think it's the people who actually stand for the Constitution whose endorsements I've actually been courting. It's not just a maximizing numbers game, but it's those who actually share a constitutionalist conservative view. And, I think that I'd rather stand for what's right and even lose an election, if that's what it comes to, than to win by playing some fake game of political snakes and ladders. That being said, I think we're going to deliver a major surprise, not a small surprise, a major surprise. And I was somewhat combination of amused and offended when I read the story out of the Iowa Standard that laid out, I thought it was some good journalism, of somebody getting a poll, which was an AP and Fox poll, or was it? It was an Associated Press and Fox News joint poll that purposefully is literally, you have voters proactively asking about my name when they're not mentioned according to this reporting. And they'll hear from anyone from Asa Hutchinson to Donald Trump to Nikki Haley to Ron DeSantis, but exclude me. That's purposefully trying to, I think, and has successfully sullied the waters of the small set of people who are actually polled, but has really deceived the general public about what's about to happen here in Iowa. And the sad part is, the mainstream media, you all, latch onto that narrative in deciding what you foist onto your viewers and deciding who they should or shouldn't support because I fall outside of that Overton window. But you know what? The people aren't going to be duped. I don't think the people of Iowa, the caucus goers, are sheep. I think that we're going to see a major surprise on January 15th. And I expect accountability for the very people who have not only manufactured those polls, but have relied on them, systematically excluded certain of the polls that were done in an artificial and devious way to try to foist a narrative ahead of this race. Shame on the media for doing that. But I think that we're going to see a massive surprise, and I will invite all of you to our press gaggle that night, and I'm going to ask you to explain why the heck your organizations were systematically trying to count me out of an election when the people of this country, you see roomfuls like this one, are going to deliver a major surprise that night. So I'll look forward to that on Monday, but in the meantime, I can take some questions.
Mr. Ramaswamy, yesterday you said, quote, if you can't handle the snow, you can't handle Xi Jinping, a Nikki Haley's canceled event.
Yes, Alex, you're going to ask your classic question. So
do you feel confident?
Alex Talbot checked the box. Has now happened. We're the only. I'm the only candidate who hosted multiple campaign events today. 4 campaign events. You were there. You were also later than. Yes, I am. You're darn right I am. The best person in this country to take on Xi Jinping. The only person that did 390 events. Classic mainstream media, lying nonsense. Same organizations that are part of an establishment trying to count us out. You know what? I've done more events than every other candidate combined. And people know in Iowa they reward the people who show up. We've shown up, and we're not just showing up to check some box. We're meeting these people, built friendships over the course of this year. We're doing this in the way that I believe this process is supposed to work. The Iowa caucus works this way for a reason. I think many of you are actively interfering with the Iowa caucus. Shame on you for that. Trying to actually create artificial distortions. Thankful for a real journalist who at least is an Iowan journalist at the Iowa Standard that reported on a lot of these shenanigans, expressly excluding certain polls used by the RNC to determine who you do and don't put in front of your audiences. Shame on you. But the people of this state, and the caucus goers in particular, I think are smart enough to see through it. We're betting on their ability to do it. And so shame on you for your distortions. Keep them continuing. I'm going to take the questions from you guys. But I'm not going to stop calling you out on a lot of the hypocrisies that have tried to interfere in this Iowa caucus, and I think the people are seeing through it.
So respectfully, some of these polls also allowed you to be on those debate stages earlier, or last year. Why speak out now, especially when lesser known candidates like Ryan Dinkley, Perry Johnson did not make the debate stage for citing similar reasons?
Well, look, I think that things have changed ever since I started speaking outside the Overton window of what's acceptable in the Republican Party. I mean, the truth of what happened on January 6th, that was the third rail. Across that, you got the corporate media that has lost their mind over it. I think that it's actually the positions that I've adopted. It's one thing to be anti-woke, that's within the Overton window. But if you're actually hitting the third rail on Ukraine, actually exposing the realities of what's going on the ground in Ukraine, how our money's been spent, how this war doesn't advance our interests, the corrupt influences leading to it, embracing positions that I increasingly have been open about, transparent about, as I've learned more to be able to report to the American people what the media isn't reporting to them. I think that falls outside of the Overton window, has increased, I think, at a drastic scale, the manipulation. I think in the early phase of this race, a lot in the establishment saw this as a cute candidacy that mixed things up a little bit and, let the guy go. But I now have stayed far deeper than anybody expected or wanted in this race. And I think the media has lost their minds with respect to a lot of those hard truths that I've been speaking. And so I do think that that's part of what's at work. And it's not just left-wing media. I mean, I think the corporate media broadly is betraying what many people are able to see through directly actually going to the people. That's why I've done more podcasts than any other candidate. I think that it is shameful the way in which the corporate media broadly is actually trying to artificially create a distortion of what the people of this country actually want. But thank God Iowa goes first, and I think we're in for a shock on Monday night, and I'm looking forward to delivering.
Let me push back on the question a little bit. I mean, nothing against Mr. Johnson or Mr. Blinkley. I'm sure they're fine people with a lot of impressive accomplishments, but they've never, ever been in the same category as Mr. Ramaswamy, who, what year did you write Woke Inc.? What year? 2021?
I started writing in 2020, published in 21.
Okay, so, I mean, he was on the tip of the spear exposing the ESG cartel, which is one of the most important issues affecting not our nation, but the entire world, on, who's manipulating public policy and finance in the United States. So, I mean, he's been on the front line with major policy accomplishments and issues bringing forth, where to compare him to people like Perry Johnson, there's just no comparison. From my
Well, so I think that there's something broader going on. It's not like a narrow one thing. There's an established mainstream media narrative of the race. They've picked up their chosen puppet. They're propping her up. And they're effectively trying to narrow this down to a two-horse race between Donald Trump and a puppet they can control, eliminate Trump from contention. The first step to solving a problem is to name it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm the America First candidate in this race, so you're not going to be able to take out. I am in this to the very end. A lot of you guys have been trying to write a lot of the trash about trying to, discredit the candidacy of how committed I am. You know what? I'm spending my own money. I'm putting my own money where my mouth is. We are in this race to the very end. And the very end is November 2024, and then it's January 2033. So get ready, guys. I'm not going anywhere. And you know what? You're going to have to start getting used to it and contending with the realities of the issues I'm talking about, even if that falls outside of what your bosses deem acceptable for television coverage.
You're in this to the very end, but Axios reported that members of
Yeah, it's Axios is crap.
for a new job, saying that they'll be free in February.
So look, this is the future of my campaign is we're going to victory and we're going to the very end. And this is the same type of, Axios is just potato with all of you here. They just don't have video cameras. The reality is, these people, Tricia McLaughlin does a good job as our press secretary. They would, unnamed sources of some person, we got, 50, 60 odd people working the campaign, hundreds of volunteers. If they are in Iowa, they would be smart because the Iowa caucus is on January 15th. I wish them well in whatever their next step is. But this is actually what this is another campus opposition campaign. A lot of the other campaigns, and you guys have your sources, they're threatened by my rise right now, no doubt about it. There's a lot of people across each of these campaigns that's now desperately trying to throw spaghetti against the wall. Now, it works with some of you. I would encourage the others of you, don't fall for that trap, or if you want to play that game, go ahead and do it. The people, I think, are smart enough to see through it. But the reality is, from me to you, from my bank account going into my campaign, putting my money where my mouth is, this isn't some guy offering artificial words without actually backing it up with action. I'm in this to the end. It's out of my obligation to this country. I see in plain sight what's happening, and you guys yourselves are pawns in that game too, of an establishment that wants to narrow this down, eliminate Trump, and put up their puppet. I am not going to let that happen on my watch. And the reason is I am not only the best positioned person to take this America First movement to the next level, but if we fail to do that, I don't think we have a country. We don't have the same country left. And so I owe it to this country to make sure we are not only in this to the very end, we're in this through the inauguration all the way through January 2033. That's what's going to happen, and I'm confident in that. It's my purpose that guides me. And all of the other fake reporting is just another example of a desperate attempt of a bunch of super PAC puppets that have their cronies in the media doing their bidding for them.
I just want to add on to that as well, because I think, again, this hypothetical, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next week, next month, none of that matters. What matters is the present moment, what's happening right now. And there are very important issues that Iowans need to deliberate. I didn't realize until just very recently that Fink had endorsed Nikki Haley.
Oh, he's going to her fundraisers.
So I don't know when that happened. I didn't get that from the media.
But does it surprise you?
Well, and it's just so shocking because this is one of the big globalist architects of whatever's happening internationally, and this is the biggest threat. So I think what's most inspired me is calling out, the problem isn't so much Joe Biden, Gavin Newsom, all those people. We have Nikki Haley being backed by people like Larry Fink and these big globalists who their sole purpose is to deconstruct national sovereignty, to allow these big pipeline projects to rob land from Iowans. That's what people need to be focused on and discussing, is what is the future of Iowa and the United States of America in this moment? What's happening in this moment in time that's going to affect our peace and prosperity, our health and happiness? Not this BS distraction of, what's going to happen a month or two from now.
Yes, I agree.
It's really upsetting.
And 2 p.m. tomorrow at the Capitol Rotunda, we are hosting, along in collaboration with the Free Soil Project, a rally against the carbon capture pipeline and its use of eminent domain. You going to be there?
I'm opening up at 12 o'clock.
Good. Awesome. Excellent. You should come out too, because I think that
I'll be in the building.
It's excellent because we want to make sure the issues that the other candidates don't want to touch are heard, because the people of the state care about them, but the donor class doesn't let them talk about it. And you know what? I'm not dependent on that donor class, and that's what allows me to speak the truth freely.
And last thing I'll say, there's other candidates, you'll ask them, what's your stance on the carbon pipeline? And they'll tell you everything but their stance on that issue. Yet there's people's property, their century farms are at stake at this issue. We need to be talking about it now, and it needs media attention.
Speaking on calling everybody out and other candidates, you're not going to be on the debate stage.
There is what debate stage?
3 months ago you said
what debate stage?
2 months ago you said you were going to debate Dr. Cornel West. His campaign denied that. He said it wasn't true. It never happened.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You said you were going to debate Cornel West. You're going to have a conversation with him on race.
I have no idea what you're talking about. We've had about 1,000 conversations in this campaign. Cornel West is not high on my list of priorities, but I'm open to talking to anybody. Who are you with, and are you with this campaign? Okay, all right, got it. Okay, got it.
You said that
I'm open to it.
Well, you said that it was going to happen. His campaign denied it.
Okay, I don't care.
Okay.
This means nothing to me. Was this the University of Chicago thing? Okay, I think the University of Chicago was really upset that we went and did something with. I've been to the University of Chicago. They wanted me to come. I said I would if they want to do it. What's your question?
Since his campaign said it wasn't true, are there any other candidates that you are willing to debate one-on-one?
Anybody. That's my answer. It's my whole premise. I mean, you got events here. You got other Republican candidates that will be having security escort people out if they have a question that the candidate disapproves of. We don't roll that way. I'm running to lead the President of the United States of America. If I can't handle people who disagree with me, I'm not fit to lead this country. And I don't think anybody else who's doing the same thing is fit to lead this country. I think I'm the only person in this race who is confronting people who disagree. I don't know how long you've been paying attention to this campaign. That's what I've been doing this whole race. And so we haven't talked to everybody possible. Your question, with respect, ma'am, is incoherent, and I have no idea what you're talking about. But the answer is I'm going to talk to anybody in this race, from Democrat, Republican, Cornel West, the person you mentioned, RFK, who are some of the other people running, whose names I forget, whoever, Dean Phillips. I'm fine with anybody. We'll talk to anybody in this campaign. I've done probably more podcasts than anybody else. Talk to this Turks. Who's the Turks podcast guy? Oh, Cenk. Supposedly he's running for president. I'll talk to anybody. I didn't know that, but we have to have more open dialogue in this country. I think we cannot be just siloed in our own echo chambers. I believe in confronting especially those who can offer the best possible arguments for the other side. Those are the ones that I actually care to engage with the most. And I think that's how we're going to set an example for this country is give me the best possible argument. I'll give you my best possible argument. The people of this country actually get to decide what vision they want for their country's future. So yes, the short answer is we talk to everybody right here. Just a little louder. Yep.
Yesterday I asked you if you were worried about safety risks holding events in the snowstorm. You said no. Since then, obviously, you yourself got stuck in the snow. Other campaign staffers got stuck in the snow. You've seen up and down the highways how people stuck in the snow. It's been a serious issue.
And I appreciated you braving last night. You were one of the few that actually came all the way out to the Northwest.
I'm wondering if you're reevaluating the level of events you guys are doing going forward due to safety, or if you're reevaluating.
No, I think we're gonna operate at full throttle. I think that's how I roll. That's how I've run this campaign. It's how I'm going to lead this country. But I told everybody this morning to pass the messages on to the team. Drive slowly. Don't rush. If it comes down to missing an event, then miss the event. Safety comes first. But, the same precautions that people are taking ordinarily, they should take them under these circumstances too. And I do think that we're on an important mission. And so I think it's important that if Iowans are coming out to see us, and at each of our events today and each of our events yesterday, there are people who came out to see me. And so if the people of this state respect this process enough to show up to hear from me, I need to show the process enough respect to show up to hear from them. And that's what I'm going to do at every step, and encourage everybody to be safe and don't rush, don't drive on the road in ways that create safety risks, of course. But I encourage everybody's safety. I pray for everybody's safety, but in the safest way possible. We're going to meet Iowans, and you see, how many people came out tonight? Hundreds of people are out here tonight that came here to hear us. It's our job to also show up and reciprocate the respect for this process in Iowa, which is what I'm bringing.
And then just one on the polls. There was a CNN University of New Hampshire poll that came out today that had you at 8%, trailing Trump and Haley.
In New Hampshire?
In New Hampshire, yeah. I'm wondering if you're worried about being so much time in Iowa, about neglecting New Hampshire.
I think that the result in Iowa is going to completely change the dynamic of this race. I also think, with due respect, for the same reason that the Iowa Standard has reported, a lot of those polls, I believe, are fake. They understate our polling. I think it's mysterious to me why we got a call from CNN that the Morning Consult and other polls, some of the largest well-conducted polls, were somehow going to be included by the RNC for every one of their debates, but somehow excluded by CNN. So the whole process, I don't mean to be a skeptic, and this is not personally directed at you. I just think it's true of CNN, and I think it's true of many of these media institutions, are combination of intentionally and subconsciously adopting their own narrative at the expense of what the reality on the ground actually is. I think we're going to deliver a major shock here in Iowa. It turns the rest of the race upside down. I think the polls are drastically off the mark, not a little bit, drastically off the mark. And I see no point in arguing about it because we're going to have an answer to that very soon.
Mr.
Ramaswamy, there was reporting this morning that you won't be filing to be on the ballot in Illinois for strategic reasons. What are those strategic reasons?
49 states, 7 territories that we're focused on. The good things actually come through focus. I want to focus on states where we're going to compete and win effectively through a fair process. 49 states, 7 territories. I don't know what the other candidates are, if the other candidates have all been on as many states or territories as we have. Again, I think it's the mainstream media buying the narrative of some super PAC that feeds you the stuff that you then read off of whatever script they gave you to read. Where are the other candidates' answers? I have no idea. Everybody's printing off the fact that I'm in 49 states and 7 territories. Ask the other candidates. I think we're well ahead of many of them. That being said, it's going to be sufficient to ultimately get the nomination and for the general election, ultimately to secure the actual number of votes we need in the Electoral College for me to be the next president. That's the path we're charting out. I'm doing things differently than a lot of traditional campaigns. I think it's no surprise that the mainstream media got upset, cable news, when I stopped spending on cable news. I think cable news is a melting ice cube. And I think that one of the things we've realized is it's not that effective. In a targeted way, sure, it can make sense, but I'm driven by data. We have a precision targeted strategy to running this campaign in the same way that I would run a company. It takes a while as a newcomer to get your arms around it, but the more that I do, the more that I realize a lot of the way the political process is run as an assembly line is actually kind of broken. So we are doing things differently. If I knew the things that I knew now when we started this campaign, we would be even further along than we are right now. But you learn from your experiences, and as a newcomer, that's also what gives me a fresh perspective, which is one of the advantages. Sir, you get.
Earlier today,
And tell me who you're with.
New York Post.
Okay.
You expressed concerns that there's a trap ahead of the 2024 election. If voters in the Republican primary elect Donald Trump, is that bringing the trap, or is that more aimed at like Nikki Haley?
I think that I've, at this point, in very clear terms, in my recent conversations with Tucker, with Darren Beattie, with others, have, in podcast form, laid out exactly what I think is going on. I said it tonight, and I'll say it again. I think the establishment, including the mainstream media, including the donor class that spans both political parties, the broad establishment that I think effectively controls elements of both parties in this country, wants to narrow this down to be a 2-horse race between Donald Trump and a puppet who they can control, to then eliminate Trump from contention such that the controllable puppet becomes the next president. Joe Biden's a puppet for that same managerial class. Now, they've lost their use for Biden. The Democratic Party's brand has maybe been tarnished a little bit too much, that they're diversifying their puppet bets. And I think that one of those puppets is sitting right here in the Republican Party. And you don't have to reach far to say the very people who have propped up the likes of George Soros Jr. You got Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, the guy who's funding the very lawsuits against Trump, including those to keep him off the ballot, is one of the largest super PAC donors to Nikki Haley. So it doesn't take anything but somebody with, I would say, a basic level of curiosity to understand what's going on here. And I think that's an unacceptable outcome for this country. I think this has to be an America First candidate that wins, and I refuse to let this country fall into that trap. And that is why I will be in this race to the very end, because it's the right thing to do for this country. Do you have one?
Vivek, I just want to say, first things first, I think all the corporate media are wrong. I think the polls are wrong.
I think they're wrong too.
I think you're going to deliver a shock on January 15th.
Thank you.
My question is, with the Bitcoin ETFs soon to be approved, what's your thoughts on BRICS as a global organization and the U.S. dollar kind of losing its value, being backed by basically nothing? How do you integrate?
I'm sorry, sir. Intelligent questions are not allowed in these press caucus. You're only allowed to ask what is within the Overton window of established issues that do not matter to the future of this country. But you asked one that does matter to the future of our country. I'll address it anyway. So BRICS refers to the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa alliance that, among other things, is establishing a currency backed by gold, a gold standard, to replace the dollar as the reserve currency of the world. This is a major problem for the United States. This would permanently increase our borrowing costs if the dollar is no longer the established currency, the established reserve currency of the world, especially at a time where we're $34 trillion in national debt, which isn't a great time to increase your native borrowing costs from the dollar no longer being the reserve currency. So, yes, actually, that does matter. The right way to deal with it, though, isn't to try to swat that down, but to increase the value proposition of the dollar itself by pegging the dollar to hard commodities. Single mandate for the Federal Reserve should be dollar stability. Stabilize the dollar as a unit of measurement, period. That's going to be the single mandate of the Federal Reserve, at least de facto, the way it should operate. And I'm going to appoint a chairman of the Federal Reserve who shares that view. and it's the way I'm going to actually run the United States. And I do think that I reject this idea that there's 100 different executive branches of government. There's one executive branch. Read Article 2 of the Constitution. The idea that the Fed is somehow immune from that level of accountability is a vision that I reject. Jacob, we want to give local press a stand.
Representative Shipley, I want you to talk about the importance of his position on the vaccine liability protections, removing those from the manufacturers. And then my question for you is, isn't it obvious the media is excluding you? I think there's a couple candidates on CNN tomorrow night. I think Fox News has done town halls all week with other candidates. And are you going to take Greg Gutfeld up on his invitation?
I think I am going to take Greg Gutfeld up on his invitation for the town hall. I think that the logistics of that, we have planned events, and I keep my commitments to the people we have here. But I think I'm going to give Greg Gutfeld a call and say if we can do something before the Iowa caucus. Let's try to do something. Might as well do it on Thursday or Friday. I mean, what day is today? Tuesday. So I think that's actually far more fluid and organic, and good for Greg Gutfeld. Good for Tucker. Good for people who are able to think independently outside of the programmed mind of the Overton window that's about as narrow as can be right now of what ideas we're even able to explore in our politics. And so, yeah, I was thinking about that. And the more, I've had a busy couple of days focused on a lot, but I thought about it today. I'll take Greg up on that. That's my answer to that. And yes, it is obvious. I mean, the media does not want me in this race. Look at the BS that they're printing. They're, I think, belying even their own often low journalistic standards to be able to write a narrative for this race that's designed to dupe the people of this country. And I don't think that we should let them get away with it. I also think that local press is one of the best checks that we have on centralized national media. I think there's two checks. One is a thriving local press, which sadly, one of the things I've learned traveling the state is you have some great reporters at local papers trying to do good independent journalism, but that have been choked out because of the nature of a consolidated business model. And the other check is a free and open internet, which frankly allows people to reach people directly through podcasts or otherwise. As a business matter, that's a far more promising economic proposition. I think we're going to have to figure out how the economics of local press can work, because I think it's a loss for this country to see the disappearance of local press. I think being part of this process in Iowa has opened my eyes to how important that really is. And I think it's sad, and I think it's somewhat concerning that one of the two main checks that we have on the mainstream media, that's why I'm trying to be a third, and if it's a one-man effort, hopefully others actually take that on. It's not shouldn't be the job of a politician, but we need checks on the mainstream media. We have one of them in the rise of a free and open internet. Grateful for folks like Elon Musk and others to have actually the ability to put the financial backing behind future alternatives to centralized media. But I think that the local press's ability to check that is disappearing, and I think that's going to be a problem for this country unless we do something about it.
Yeah, just one note on that BRICS question, because again, this is one of the reasons why I think you're so worthy of support. Here's an issue that is going to restructure the international order and affect the lives of Americans in a very profound way for many years to come. Yet how many of Americans are in the dark it's even happening because the mainstream media is not reporting on the important issues. So that's another reason, thank you for your leadership on addressing that head on, because it's just so profoundly important and so few people understand it the way they need to. On the vaccine liability question, I think that just shows someone who's willing to solve problems and willing to address the root of the problem. So when we talk about, anti-vax versus vaccine, it's really not about that at all. It's about the proper assignment of liability for when things go wrong. So if you reform that issue, you'll never hear the anti-vax argument again. And I know some people get really annoyed by those people. They'll all go away because all they're asking for is just making sure that if products are harmful, that there's a way to
there's
remedy
justice.
that.
But in this one case, any other manufacturer can make a product. If it harms you, you can sue them in the tort system. But for this one kind of product, somehow there's this special shield of liability. And can somebody explain to me, because I don't know what the hell happened here, why in the middle of the fourth debate where I gave my answer to that question, why was that censored? Why in the online stream of a Republican National Committee's presidential debate between four candidates was one answer excised during the live stream of that debate, right before they stop hosting debates and then networks decide what the Overton window is of what can and cannot be discussed?
Well, so I'm glad that got out, because again, it just shows we're going to solve problems, and lost my train of thought, but it's just really impressive that you...
Censorship.
Just address the issue head on, because how many people know about this and it's affecting us in a profound way, and it just needs to be talked about. So again, I'm just really...
Do you know what I'm talking about, though? They
I heard about it on Twitter. I didn't see it live.
I was shocked when I saw it. Does anybody know actually what happened there? It was sort of weird.
Did they give an official response? Or? What do you think it was?
I have no idea. I'm tethered to facts. It is beyond bizarre that when you're giving a response that runs against the interests of the very people who are the advertisers on television and the advertisers on that debate, that the thing goes dark just while I'm speaking. And it rhymes with a pattern we've seen ever since. I think it was pretty lame that CNN ended the town hall 5 minutes early. I think that it's pretty lame that you see the Overton window closing, but those are hard facts, and I'd love for somebody to explain to me what the heck happened.
This is a long topic, but this isn't supposed to be a gotcha question.
We'll go right here, and then we'll go here, and then we'll wrap.
I think it's possible that, you've been talking about the mainstream media's coverage. You think it's possible that the mainstream media, or not even trying to say it myself in this respect, that we're reporting on things that we're just not seeing?
Well, look, I think that I would like to think that that's happening, but I think that there is a systematic. My question back is, do you think it's possible that there's a systematic pervasive bias that has caused the mainstream media to systematically lie to the American public about some of the most important questions to the future of this country over a concentrated period of 5 years without a shred of self-awareness or accountability? And I think that you're right. You know, you have different sets of facts or different interpretations of facts. Yeah, there's different possibilities that could obtain. But then you see, actually, you flip over the card, you lift the veil of ignorance, and what do you see? The Russia collusion hoax was made up BS that not one network, it wasn't the thing one network picked up. Every single network adopted one narrative, which happened to be the false narrative. Then you get to the origin of COVID. It's not one network. Every single network adopts the narrative that this could not have come from a lab in Wuhan when it factually did come from a lab in Wuhan, so much so that you were censored for not saying it. The Hunter Biden laptop story on the eve of the last election, speaking about election interference. Not one network, but every network deciding that that was Russian made-up disinformation. Not one network. So at that point, I think the Occam's razor, the more parsimonious and I think credible explanation is that there's something else systematic going on. If it was uncorrelated what different members of the media think, you'd have 10 different members of the media saying 10 different things, 10 different interpretations on the same set of facts. But here, it's not only bizarre that the entire media had the same thing to say under conditions of uncertainty about the same phenomena, about 5 different topics I just laid out. But all of them not only had one interpretation, it was the wrong interpretation. So that, I think, weighs in favor of, yes, my interpretation that a media is systematically distorting a narrative yet again. That's the most parsimonious and, I think, consistent, efficient explanation for what's happening. And I said it before, I'm going to say it again because I think it's the right thing for this country. It would be healthy for this country if somebody, please, one of you step up and do it. Care about this country, to just look your audience in the eye, go through the exact instances I've just named, and just say the following words or something like it. We got it wrong. I'm sorry we got it wrong. We lied to you. Here's why we lied to you. And here's why I will give you the confidence that this will never happen again because it's unacceptable in the United States of America and unacceptable in our media. The moment that happens, I think we have taken a leap forward towards reuniting this country. The moment that happens, I'm done engaging in this, I think some cases, unnecessarily contentious back and forth because there's an easy way out of it. Literally, you all know everything I've just said is factually true. That the media lied about every one of those instances has now been disproven and has not owned accountability or apologized to their audience for it. Just do it. One of you. It will be probably the single greatest thing that could happen in the next number of months that could heal this country ahead of the next election so that we're not repeating a lot of what we went through from 2020 through January of 2021. And I think if you're able to do that, frankly, it's going to allow other the politicians, even the ones you excoriate or whatever in your coverage, to actually also focus on being held accountable themselves by a media that has then regained its integrity. But right now, the media can't play that role when no one's held the media itself accountable. That's what's missing in the chain of accountability. We'll give you the last question. You with CBS, ABC. Yeah. She's saying that there was one of the four events that we did today. As people raised their hand, there were very few caucus goers, and there were very few people among those who said they were inclined to support me. But amongst the pool, there were very few caucus goers.
So with just how do you secure those votes? How do you persuade?
Yeah. So look, I think that actually the overwhelming majority of that room was undecided. That's where they were. I've talked to people today, and I make individual phone calls to voters one at a time when I'm in the car between these events. One of the things that I've learned is that many people are waiting literally till the day of the caucus to make their decision. And I think it's because they take the process that seriously. They really want to be thoughtful and weigh who that right person actually is. And I think they're right to do that. It's a serious decision. Whoever wins this Iowa caucus, this Iowa caucus shapes the outcome of this race. And so I think that's a good thing. I think it reflects the health of this process. And the way I'm going to persuade him is by sharing my convictions, who I am, and what I stand for. And I believe that's what the people in our GOP primary base want. The distortion that stops that system from working is indeed the media. But absent that distortion, that's still how we're going to be able to ultimately respect the Iowa caucus in the process, as I do. Eddie, do you want to add something before we wrap?
If this is okay, and I'm just kind of curious on the previous question that you mentioned, those four things that were provably false.
Yes.
And I'm just kind of curious. I know some of these guys, we've been following some of you guys. I'm curious if there's any national media who actually believe that they were wrong, that those mirrors.
Actually, it's a good question, Eddie. So Eddie's one of the, you guys are colleagues, two of the top state reps here. And I think that's a good thing to be curious about. Just by show of hands, who here is willing to admit that the Trump-Russia collusion hoax was indeed incorrectly reported by the mainstream media? Is there anybody here able to admit that that was incorrect reporting? Why not? Why would that be inappropriate? I think it would be inappropriate. What's inappropriate is lying to the public.
Was the public lied to, or did the media report on this set of facts that were provided?
So that's a fair question. I actually think that the public was lied to long after the media systematically still understood that this was the product of the Steele dossier. The Steele dossier was a piece of Russian disinformation provided by the Hillary Clinton campaign that was served up to the federal government as a basis for issuing a FISA warrant to then potentially infiltrate a member of the opposition party. If this was Bush and Cheney doing it to John Kerry, this would have been the stuff of scandal, impeachment, and worse. And yet, I think it was an intentional lie that the media said that account, which we now know to be true, was actually the Russian disinformation. Now, Shauna, I would be charitable in my interpretation of that if it were just one instance. Let me give an easier one. Just by show of hands, does anybody believe the media's reporting about the origin of COVID-19 ran flatly in face of the facts that you have a Wuhan Institute of Virology that was now the likely origin of the COVID-19 pandemic? You all said that it wasn't for a long time. By show of hands, was the Wuhan lab the likely origin of the COVID-19 pandemic? Everybody, media or not. So you have reported, the same media that has reported that the COVID-19 pandemic did not originate in a lab in Wuhan is willing to even say, unwilling to admit today, it was known that there was a Wuhan Institute of Virology where they were conducting gain-of-function research, the very city which was the origin of a global pandemic. And yet the media's explanation was that somehow it could have been any source other than actually having started in a lab. I just think that that's systematically unacceptable. The Hunter Biden laptop. Is the Hunter Biden laptop story, as reported by the New York Post, which was shut down, had the Twitter account locked for anybody who is even sharing the story of the Hunter Biden laptop found on the eve of the last election, the media reported that it was Russian disinformation on the eve of that election. Does anyone here agree that the Hunter Biden laptop story, as reported by the New York Post, was indeed accurately reported and was not Russian disinformation, but was in fact a factually owned laptop of Hunter Biden? I mean, you got to, man. I mean, your paper reported it. Does everybody else seriously not believe that?
I mean, I So Hunter Biden suing Rudy Giuliani over the laptop. So I don't think that's.
So you don't believe, so you think that it actually was the product of Russian disinformation, as was reported by the media, that was the basis for suppressing this at the time?
Cover the Hunter Biden case.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why we're talking about that.
Because it was election interference on the eve of the last election. And I think there's the same kind of election interference happening this time around. And I think it's happening, the early waves of it, with respect to the treatment of my candidacy. And I think that that is likely to be a major problem heading into the next year, unless we're able to openly and transparently acknowledge the mistakes of the past. Without acknowledging the mistakes of the past, I think we are destined for an even more dangerous future. And I do not want to see a repeat of what happened in the 12 to 15 months leading up to January of 2021. I don't want to see that in this country. And I worry we're on a path to far worse than that until we have accountability 360 degrees for the mistakes that were made in that lead up. And the Hunter Biden laptop story and its suppression, Shauna, I do believe was a key part of the lead up to that. I think the suppression of the origin of COVID and the origin of the pandemic was a key part of the lead up to what happened in January of 2021. I think that the systematic suppression of speech in this country, even about debating the lockdowns, was a key part of what culminated in January 6, 2021. And as somebody who's looking to lead this country and hopefully, dare I say, reunite this country, I think it is critical, it is vital to the future of this country that we not repeat those same mistakes, and yet that's exactly what I'm seeing play out in slow motion, hiding in plain sight. And so it's my concern for this country that leads me to run for U.S. president. It's my concern for this country that causes me to raise what aren't some ancient issues to be swept under the rug. I think that history is relevant to what's happening today. And I will say, you ask thoughtful questions. You ask challenging questions, you ask thoughtful questions from time to time. I appreciate that. But I'm not, this is not some sort of contentious gotcha in reverse. I just think somebody in the media, like very soon, needs to stand up and do what I have suggested, which is to look your audience in the eye, any one network, to say, here's where we got it wrong last time. We're sorry about that. Here are the steps we're taking to make sure it doesn't happen again in this election. And I think that that will improve the integrity of this election, and I think it will improve the, frankly, future safety of our institutions over the course of the next 12 to 16 months, which I am deeply worried about in this country. I'm worried about it. As an American, I'm worried about it as a candidate. I think we're skating on thin ice, and I think we have limited time to shore up the actual support for this country that we're working with. And so that's why I'm saying what I am. Thank you for the extra time. We'll see you guys. Thank you. Thanks for that reporting. Good work, man. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Shauna, hey, I should have known the answer to that guy whose name you mentioned. I didn't know it. Yeah, okay, get me. I knew who you were talking about, but I didn't know the name. So, for my part, I'll tell you, I should have known that, and I didn't. And if we're having a contentious conversation about white supremacy in this country, I didn't know the guy's name, and I should have. I just think it would be good for this country. I think you may be among those who may be in a position that I could bet on to do it. There's some colleague at CBS of yours who's actually he's doing some good work. But somebody needs to step up and actually go the distance. Even in his touching on it, he's dancing around it. Look the camera in the eye and say, here's where we got it wrong. And then, you know what? That'll put politicians in a position where they're going to have to do the same thing. And I think that could be a beautiful thing for this country. And so I'm just saying that as human being to human being, that's kind of how I feel about it. Thank you. Yeah. Hey. Hey.
All right, good.
Hey.
How's it going?
What's going on, man?
Randy Howard.
Good to see you.
How are you? You doing all right?
How you been, man?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, like that again. I'm not trying to bully anybody out the way, but again, just kind of been following you guys.
Malcolm,
along.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good to see you.
Been following you guys again. Of course, I met your lovely wife.
You did? At the last event? Nice.
Yep. And so, I mean, really, just a couple of questions. I'm not going to
Sure.
believe you because, man, you just put on a masterclass at that point.
Thank you,
but,
man.
Dude, like one of the first things that I'm kind of fielding for a lot of my friends.
Yep.
And, one of the main questions that's kind of coming up is where do you view content and, sort of creating like TV, digital media, video games, things like that as a priority when it comes to, creating the next youth, and like how do you...
Where do I view content creation in the future of our country?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that there's a good version of it, which I think is the right way to go, but there's also bad content. So it's just like anything, it's an instrument that can be used to do good or used to, not do good. But I think that it's, right now, given how broken the existing centralized media establishment is, it's a single check that we have is decentralized content creation by independent journalists or otherwise. It's probably the best check that we have on that mainstream media. And so all else equal, the freedom to do it's good. But I think there's versions of that recreating some of the same problems we have with the mainstream media too. So it's not a panacea, but it's good that such an option exists. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Another question that came up as well is because right now we're seeing gun crime rise, and everybody's pretty much saying that gun crime is the biggest issue, but a lot of people insightfully see that it's more so the mental health. But then it kind of begs the question: what are we doing to really remedy sort of the mental health system when we've got a medical system that's more, I guess, focused on getting people on health subscription plans and prescribing pills? Like, how are we fixing that to remedy?
End the lobbying. Start with that. The pharmaceutical industry lobbies for the very policies that reward pill-pushing behaviors, but without actually treating or promoting underlying health. We have a sick care system, not a health care system, because of that lobbying. So there's a lot I could go through, in the health care system specifics, but the root cause of it all is corruption, which is where it begins, actually. So end the corruption, and it's amazing what good happens in the country. You around the next couple of days?
Man, I wish. So far, my
you hang out tomorrow?
Yeah, it's got me setting to pretty much.
Well, thank you for joining us today. It was an interesting day because it was like a blizzard all over the place.
Yes, you're the first guy I've seen that will not only brave the elements like this, but then kind of make it his mission to get out there, even if it's literally via digital. Like, I've never.
Yeah, we're going to do whatever it takes. Thank you, man. I appreciate you joining us. I think independent journalists are kind of important to put a check on, I think, a lot of the centralized corporate media. I think a lot of those people working for them, they're actually young people.
Yeah.
Not individually, these young people certainly are not. A lot of them are, I've gotten to know them. They're not all bad people, but they go into the system that turns them into these automatons. And that's, I think, what your path provides an alternative to, actually, is it puts a check on that. The media is supposed to check politicians, but who's checking the media?
No one.
Well, I mean, that's where the new decentralized world of, independent journalists come from. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for giving
us the opportunity. Where do you live?
I'm all the way from deep South Alabama.
Is that where you flew from?
Like I said, you guys know, Iowa, this whole place knows how to make a little southern Alabama boy feel at home.
It's good. It's good.
It's
good. It's a good place. It's a good place. Yeah. We'll see you guys. Take care. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm glad you're here.
Man,
keep up the good work.
Look, take it all the way, man.
I think we're going to.
No matter what. You're giving a lot of people hope.
Thank you.
I've heard this place has never been this packed.
Yeah, no, we're just getting warmed up. So, thank you, man. I appreciate it. You take it easy. Take care.
You're good?
Yep. Right here. Okay, thank you. Guys. Good night. We'll see you guys. Keep up the good work. Hey, good to see you. Were you here the whole time, man?
No, I just stopped in. I was at Loomer's thing. I just stopped by.
Oh, really? At the end? Yeah. Nice. Yeah, we had a good. We had a good day. This whole place was actually amazing. What happens when the weather gets a little better?
I'll see you tomorrow.
It's good seeing you, man. Yeah, thank you. Take it easy. Are you around tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be around.
Cool. It's good to see you. Thank you. Keep up the good work, man. Yep. It's good to see you.
Yes,
thank you.
Good night.
Hey, we'll see you guys. Is this for me?